The Senate Committee on Oversight will return to order. All right, next up, I have a card for Jennifer Sidell. Jennifer? Welcome to the Senate Committee on Oversight. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Jennifer Sidell. I have provided you my affidavit, and I have provided this under oath. I have a lot to go over, but I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to be kind and try and get through it quickly. But here goes. I was actually a poll challenger for the GOP party, and I was there on Tuesday the 3rd and Wednesday the 4th. I was there on the Tuesday the 3rd from about 6:45 a.m. until about 11:30 p.m. And then I came back the next day, and I was there from about 11 a.m. until probably midnight. So I have a good overview of things that happened. I was one of the lucky ones who did not get kicked out of the room because I kept my mouth shut, as I was instructed to do. So there's a vast difference between the 2 days. The first day, on Tuesday, things were, moving along. There were a lot of duplicated ballots. I was told by an election official that an entire area of about 5,000 ballots were mailed out, and they mailed out the incorrect ones, so they had to go back and duplicate all of those ballots. It was hard to get proper oversight over this. We were told to stand 6 feet away, and we were permitted on times to take a step forward. So that's 5 feet away if you have long legs like me. And about 15 seconds we could look in. So realistically, we couldn't really see much. So at one table, I saw a single ballot duplicated 4 times. I was told by the table lead that the first duplicate was because of the wrong precinct. The second was user error. The third was the wrong precinct again. I managed to see the notes in the QVF and that the incorrect ballots were listed, but the duplicate ballots were in numerical order, which I thought was weird by precinct. I estimate that I probably saw 3,000 to 4,000 duplications the first day. And the next day, it was chaotic. A poll worker, let me first say that I was assigned to and gladly took the lead of watching the military ballots. It was limited to me and one other GOP person that could stand there and monitor the table of about 17, 25, I don't know, boxes of ballots. Military ballots were unfolded and were different, and I was not permitted within 6 feet of those ballots. However, there was one lady from the NAACP and another one from the ACLU that were up wandering about, looking in the boxes with an election official, which I thought was rather odd. I saw person after person getting kicked out of the room, and it was almost like, here's a shiny object in the room over here, look at this commotion while we do this over here. And I witnessed that on several occasions. I'd also like to say that at one point I heard reports, there's 134 Republicans in the room, we can't let more in, you have enough people. But they didn't, if I may, they didn't let us know that we were to sign out. And all the people that got kicked out were not getting signed out. I witnessed probably about 30 people getting kicked out for not really doing much. Maybe they tried to challenge and weren't allowed. I saw that, and then people left for lunch because we were told that we could leave for lunch, and they weren't allowed back in the room without even being notified that they had to sign out. So them saying that there were a lot of Republicans in the room is categorically false. I counted 7 people that were helping me with the military ballots. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have submitted written testimony for...
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This morning, yes.
Any questions, members? Senator Tice.
Sorry, when you say 7 people helping you with the military ballots, that's not 7 people total in the room, that's 7 people who were helping you right there. How many total do you think there might have been?
I saw probably a dozen. And we were trying to make sure that each stack of military ballots and their duplicate ballots were going back to the table and being followed. Those people weren't even allowed to get an elbow in, and I say that jokingly, of course, weren't even allowed to see because there were swarms of people around the table from different parties that were allowed in And I also want to say one quick thing. Earlier, a gentleman talked about the password, the password to the QVF in the system. There was the piece of paper with the login and the password were taped to each table. And it was admin and this password taped to each table. So God and everyone could get that password. I just want to say, sorry, God.
Senator, I want to make one clarification. For those who don't know, because I know there are a lot of people who are like watching on TV and maybe not everybody in the audience knows, military ballots come in a particular format that they cannot be processed with. So they have to be transcribed from the ballot that they mailed in to the ballot that's consistent with the precinct that they're at. So that's the reason why the military ballots are being so closely watched, is because everyone by necessity has to be transcribed onto a specific ballot that's different from the one that they sent. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tice.
Correct.
Senator Santana?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, you know, we're dealing with a pandemic, right?
Of course.
And so part of the reason why the voting counting process was moved to the TFC Center was to make sure that people were socially distancing.
Correct.
And so, you know, one of the protocols, and maybe you haven't heard this, but Dr. J with DHHS has also made it where we want to make sure that people are being safe based on the science. So having people maneuvering in and out of the room where ballots are being counted, do you think that it would be a good practice to make sure that you sign out if you're going to lunch? I mean, it's just like if you were going to a job every day. Where you work hourly work, you would check out for lunch, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so do you think that process makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. The COVID, I understand, and it's in my testimony about the COVID orders, and we were all trying to be polite, but we were standing 6 feet away, and the other parties were at the table, even sitting down at the table with them. I witnessed this on several occasions. The Democrat challengers were sitting down at the table with them, helping them duplicate ballots. And we weren't allowed within 6 feet. So it was a little bit disparaging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to testify today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Next up, I have Jasmine Early, and followed then by Artisia Bomber, and then Charles Rchard. Ms. Early, welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to start with an Hispanic from South America with a black grandmother and a Hispanic Indian native mom. I believe in one race, the human race. With that said, I can tell you that I'm not a racist. I'm a legal immigrant who is speaking here because I took my pledge to become an American citizen very seriously. I was a Republican certified poll challenger at the TCF Center from November 4th to November 5th. I was one of the victims of harassment, discrimination, and intimidation by election workers while I was fulfilling my duty as a challenger. What the witness has shared are no conspiracy theories. Several times, election workers tried to remove me from the room with the false accusations that I was impeding their process. They were the ones who blocked me from seeing the ballots, and when allowed, workers would complain. An election worker was brought up to harass me with the base of being too close. However, among themselves, they didn't social distance. I explained to him that I was only following the chairperson's direction in and out. Somehow we got to the point that English was not my first language, and he implied that then I shouldn't be there. I told him that he was discriminating and that he was treating me like garbage. He went away. Later, poll workers whispered to each other and brought police officers to remove me. It was pretty intimidating having officers approaching me when I had not done anything wrong. I understood they were trying to do their job. I noticed an officer was Hispanic, and I talked to him in Spanish. They were being lied. The officer started backing up. I witnessed many Republicans being kicked out of the room, and it was scary. That is not the America I came to a few decades ago. They were mad, kicked out, and not replaced, even though they were Republicans outside to be allowed to enter. It didn't happen. Since I was not able to see the poll books and didn't have anything to compare with, I was legally advised to challenge every ballot. The workers got pretty upset about it and advised to their people not to stop the process and dismiss any challenge. I had pages of
1 minute.
notes of ballots. Here I had an affidavit where I can prove you that I didn't see, we couldn't do anything. There were people entered with a 11900, and I took the time to check those people. They didn't allow me to challenge it. The names of the people are here. While the Democrats are dismissing the finding from challengers, if those people were alive and registered to vote, why they were manually entered? Why weren't the ballot boxes properly sealed by the workers? Several of them were unattended, and I had a list of those tables. Me and another challenger questioned why those boxes were unsealed. The election director proceeded to seal them. As an American citizen and on behalf of the people of Michigan, I'm here to demand that you remember you took an oath to defend the country from enemy, domestic and foreign. Remember, it is your moral, ethical, and lawful duty today to seek for an investigation on the chain of custody. Demand election integrity. Demand a detailed forensic audit. You can go into history as the heroes for doing something right for this country and bringing to light what is hidden, or as cowards who didn't have the courage to protect the election integrity. You will be remembered as those who took a courageous and political incorrect stand, or as dishonest people who side with the fraud. It is your choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator McDonald has a question.
I just want to say hi to Jasmine. Jasmine is a constituent of mine. How are you?
I'm good.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that every one of you had to go through this experience. I think it's reprehensible. I think it's unforgivable. So thank you.
It was hate toward us. That is how I described being there. I didn't come to a country that I will be mistreated in that way. I love this country. I will stand and fight for it, but doesn't really matter. I didn't grow up seeing people by skin colors. No matter who you are, no matter where you came from, you should seek for integrity, because outside the country, we see America as an honest people, filled with honest people with integrity. I want that to be preserved, and that is why we are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for your
I will
testimony.
give you a copy of the affidavit that was given to the lawyer.
Please.
Thank you.
Next, we have our
Hey, what's up, everyone? Good afternoon. Please let me know how you're doing in the chat. As always, please hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. If you're new here, please subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell icon. That way you'll be notified every time we go live. I try to go live every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. Thank you guys for being here.
Cheated before it was fraudulently cheated. It was cold and calculated fraud. And as a sidebar for Senator Santana, if Black Lives Matter, why did you skip me? Well, anyway, let me get on. Senator McBroom, sir, when I first saw your name, two things instantly came to my mind. One, will you sweep my testimony under the rug like the other people have done, such as Dana Nessel, who's in the fraud, check, Governor Whitmer, fraud, check, and all of the above, check. Or will you sweep me off my feet by taking my testimony as facts rather than fiction? My name is Artisia Bomber. I am an adult citizen, resident, state of Michigan, also a registered voter. I was trained and credentialed to be a poll challenger for the November 2020 general election. I witnessed many election irregularities and violations of Michigan election law, and I hope that my statement is taken seriously. I am sharing this information under the penalty of perjury that if I testify, I can be locked up if I'm telling a lie, which I am not. On November the 3rd, 2020, between 9:30 and 10 p.m., I reported to TCF Center. I was assigned to two separate tables, absentee voting county board, 123 and 120. I immediately noticed things were not normal. Election workers were allowed to wear Biden t-shirts, blue face masks, the ones I recognized on Gretchen Whitmer's face in some of her interviews on Charlie Langston's show. I also saw poll workers wearing Black Lives Matter face masks, which is a political movement. Joe Biden is moving to defund the police. Thank you very much. I am not passing judgment on this because I am a proud black woman from the city of Detroit. Welcome, my sister from the D.
Please direct your
I
comments to the chair,
know
ma'am.
this because I've been strictly told not to wear anything of partisan related to my candidates for office. So election supervisors seem to be implementing a double standard. Election workers had jackets, backpacks, purses, etc. on the tables and on the floors. There was no system to check your personal effects. Some people even had coolers for food with them. I don't know what was in them. It could have been ballots for all I know. I observed an election worker pull out a ballot from an envelope where the circle was completed next to the name Donald J. Trump. I saw this with my own eyes, all this that I'm saying to you today. I could see this because the marking was at the very top left corner of the ballot. Instead of processing the ballot, I saw the election worker push the ballot back in the envelope and put it in there in a black container on top of the table. I witnessed a meeting between election workers, team leads, where they gathered together and spoke at meetings that was in the left far hand side of the wall. The meeting ended in cheers. Woo! They were just super excited. At approximately 11:43 p.m., I heard one of the team leads yell, "This is our house tonight," and further yell, "They gonna do what we tell them to do from here on out." I took that as they're saying, this is the Democrats' house tonight, and the Republicans, independent, or whoever is gonna do what we say tonight. And might I add, I was a U.S. Taxpayer Party of Michigan candidate at that time, sir. I observed stations where election workers were working on scanned ballots that had issues that needed to be manually corrected. I believe some of these workers were changing votes that had been cast for Donald Trump other than Republican candidates. I observed ballots with cursive writing notes at the top right-hand corner. I observed a lot of them. Let's say a count, maybe about 100 of them or more. I also observed these ballots did not have ballot codes on them. The one, you tear at the top, no ballot code numbers. At approximately 4:03 a.m., a poll worker announced 50 boxes of ballots coming in. Election workers loudly cheered, woo! Why? Did they know that they were for Biden? Was it a Biden dump? We don't know, huh? About 4:50 a.m., I witnessed a man spraying a chemical inside the ballot. It could have been air, but I also saw him put whiteout tape up inside of there, and he was walking around with this whiteout tape during the whole night. I have witnesses. If you need to call on them, their name is Cheryl Constantino, Linda Sawyer, Judy Jump, Debbie Swaff, and Marlene Benser, including myself, Artisia Bomber. I can't get all into this because I probably got a few more seconds, but let me tell you, it was voter fraud at its finest, pure and calculated fraud. And I wouldn't be surprised if people up here was involved. But this young man right here, Senator McDaniel, Donald, I got to give you kudos. I see you're interested in this. And Senator Thies, I have to give you kudos because I see you're really paying attention. I wish Senator Lucido was here because I say he's paying attention. And now I think you will pay attention. And I plead the blood of Jesus over this fraud. And that everybody that was part of it and know about it will be convicted in their soul and their spirit. They won't sleep, they won't eat until they come right. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you. Questions from
Any questions?
Questions from Senator Santana.
Y'all, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Ms. Bomber,
Oh,
for
you're
your
welcome.
testimony. You mentioned in your statements that you were also a candidate for the U.S. 13th Congressional District at the time that you were a challenger. Do you realize that you cannot do both of those acts at the same time?
Well, that's a double standard because y'all committed fraud and y'all wasn't supposed to do that at the same time as well. Next. I still witnessed it. My eyes still witnessed it.
Any other questions
Any other
from members?
questions?
Senator Tice?
I just want to make sure we get a copy of your testimony.
Sure, but it won't be done today because I'm going to amend it. So if you guys have anything with the word Artisia Bomber on it, dispose of it because it will be amended and that won't be withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're done? Thank you. You all have a wonderful day. And all who involved, now rest.
Next, we have Charles Rchard.
It's actually Charles Rchard.
Oh, my apologies,
Okay,
sir.
no, that's quite all right.
After Mr. Rchard, I have Evan Schock, followed by Adam DeAngeli.
Ready?
Sir,
All
yes,
right.
you have 3
Well,
minutes.
first of all,
Thank you.
thank you for having me. I'm not your normal person in terms of protester or otherwise. I'm a former vice president of quality in aerospace. And when I hear numbers bannered around, I got to tell you, if I accepted those numbers as even though they're improvement on aerospace, on aircraft, you would be dying. The planes would be dropping out of the sky. It's deplorable to hear things like what the numbers were in 2016 and what they are in 2020. So when I hear this, so I'm going to go into my speech, I'm sorry, but it really does, I just can't believe that we talk about this, okay, it's acceptable. So anyways, let me go on. My name is Charles Rchard, and I'm the chairman of the Oceana County Board of Canvassers, and I'm one of the plaintiffs in the suit with Sidney Powell. And I'll make that emphasis. That suit is very valid, and we're going forward, and you guys will be involved in it too before long, I guarantee you. So I say that because we have got to clean up what is going on in the election process. When I hear Senator Lucido say, well, we're just lawmakers, wrong. You guys chartered it. You chartered the Board of Canvassers. You go back and look at MCL 168. You guys chartered it. It's a 113-page manual too. So I can tell you specifically on that. I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard about clerks testifying. Those clerks know it up to this process. They know that part, but after that, no, they don't. The tabulators, this stuff, very few do. It's too technical. But let me tell you about one piece of evidence you don't know. The Secretary of State contracted with a company called VoterWorks. They use a software called Arlo. Arlo is an open architecture. You ought to look at that. That's a serious flaw. It's a back way into the QVF, the qualified voter file. What does that do? It allows them to enter names that may be fictitious. Well, I've seen examples of places where these people don't live and whatnot. Take a look at it. That's pretty serious flaw. It's like your bank or your credit card being open. No one's looking at that. How did we find it? We found it by preparing for the Board of Canvassers last week. I happened to discover it by looking at the audit file, the risk. The state calls it a risk limiting audit pilot system. It's a joke. I want to tell you that. It's a joke. How do I know that? I'm an auditor. I'm the systems auditor, not a computer systems auditor, a quality systems auditor, where we can tear things apart and understand what the documentation is, what you use as a standard. When you talk about an audit, what are you auditing to? What standard are you auditing to? So when I say that, so that's a joke. And that
1 minute, sir.
Actually, that open hole there is like your credit card being breached, and that's what it is. It is a distinct breach, and it's there. We need to really focus on that. And another thing is, I heard a thing about the Black Lives Matter and Jesus. We had an incident in our poll. Well, a lady had a Trust Jesus shirt on. They would not let her be in the poll. She was a poll worker. They stopped. They told her it's it's a code, dress code issue, or it's an issue. She went to five different people, including this state. So I didn't accept it. I went to the FBI, and I heard Pete Lucido say that. The FBI is a joke, and I'm going to tell you that right now, and I can validate it. So I want to finish with this. It's a joke because they don't go that far. I backed the guy into the corner, really, and then I talked to him again. He says, what do? Are we going to go after a $5 case, or are we going to go after a $10 million case? And you know what I said to him? I said both. You know why? Because that's selective enforcement if you don't. I've been on city council. I can tell you that. If you do that, you are subjugating freedom. You're basically just going after money. So let me finish with one thing if I can, then I'll give you my notes. It'll be quick. I said, finally, you have a job to do under U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 and 3. That states, and I'll paraphrase, the legislature will pick a number of electors equal to the number of senators and representatives in Michigan's case. We expect that with all the fraud going on in this state, that you would do your duty and elect the electors as described in the U.S. Constitution and rule this election null and void. Be a leader, not a wuss. Void the vote, elect electors. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir. We have questions from members?
I do just, so you said thank you, sorry. VoterWorks, and then you gave another name, but I didn't.
Arlo is the software that they use, yes. But if you go on, if I can, let me give you just a little bit addition on there. On their website, and I didn't tell you this because we're out of time, it's an item 3, it states, add voter information for voter request. They're given a procedure, okay, just so you know that. So it states, add voter information for voters requesting ballots. This can be done manually and does not require a voter registration system integration. In other words, it can bypass the verification steps. Who would ever approve an open system like that? It's a major flaw.
And that's Arlo?
Pardon me?
That part is Arlo?
That's right off. That's in VoterWorks. That's what they. That's a claim to fame. Pull it up and look at it. It's like I almost died when I found it.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Senator.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Rchard.
Yeah. I'll give you these.
Please.
I didn't put my phone there.
Yes, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Evan Schock, followed by Adam DeAngeli, And after him, I have card for Karen Chopshian, I believe. Mr. Schock, welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm a registered voter in Michigan, and I was an independent challenger at the TCF Center on November 4th, 2020. So I arrived around the time when the windows were being boarded up with cardboard boxes and signs and stuff like that. And when I walked in, I was confused on why they weren't letting challengers in and why these boards were being put up. And the people around me were also confused, so we decided to ask questions. Nobody around us could give us an answer. We were ignored, and people were walking in and out. We had no clue how these people were being let in and out. There was really nobody constituting it correctly. So after about an hour of waiting, I was an independent, so I had somebody come up to me and ask me, hey, are you an independent? I said yes, and I was let in. It was me and about 8 other people. Once I got in, I signed in, and I noticed right away that it was very chaotic in there. There was groups of people in the middle where somebody testified earlier and said there's empty ballots in the middle of the room. There were groups around those empty ballots where it'd be easy for somebody to grab these ballots, hide them, or take them somewhere without being seen. I noticed a commotion in the back right corner, so I decided to go over and see what was going on. And another independent challenger, I asked him what happened. He told me, from what I saw too, because I followed the police over there, he was being told to stay back. There were more than, I'd say, about 9 people around this table. And there was just a lot of commotion going on. He said that he was told he had to leave as an independent challenger, and they wanted a new challenger in. So I felt that was wrong. And as I was walking later, I saw a woman named Karen, who she's going to be speaking soon. She was raising her voice, so I went with these manual ballots. After we watched the duplication process go on, they brought more ballots over, and we watched them scan the ballots and put in the date 1/1/1900. I was actually with the Democratic challenger too. We were both confused on why this was happening, so we decided to call over a supervisor, who the only response we got was, "Oh, that's the default date that we put." I didn't ask any other questions, neither did he. Didn't ask any questions in the fear that I'd be kicked out, as I just witnessed 4 other Republicans/independents get kicked out. And it was interesting because in the guide, or in the handbook, it does say that no propaganda is allowed inside of the polling center. And I did see Black Lives Matter masks. And again, I feel there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like that's a double standard, and I feel that it's wrong that people can have that, and it's okay. I was called names whenever my mask fell down even a little below my nose. I'd be called names. I'd say I was killing people, stuff like that, while they'd be talking to somebody not wearing a mask. People at the polling centers weren't wearing masks, the people who were doing the duplicating. It was just very unorganized. Yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Any questions from members? Thank you very much for taking the time to testify.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that Mr. Schock? Or, yes. Okay. You want to card off here? This is the next. We haven't had her yet. That was the name I was struggling with. This is one we just did. So you want to change the number on it. All right. Thank you. Next we have Adam DeAngeli. On deck will be Karen Chopshian, followed by Randy Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for this opportunity. My name is Adam DeAngeli, and I was a poll worker in the election for the city of Detroit, not a poll challenger, but a poll worker as an employee working at a polling place as a ballot box inspector on election day, November 3rd. I think I'm only the second person today who was a poll worker, so I can answer the question I think you may all have about why so many poll challengers were impeded. I took not 1 but 2 poll worker trainings for the city of Detroit, one for ballot inspector on October 14th and one for electronic poll book inspector on October 15th. And in both of those trainings, it was emphasized to the students in the classroom that the social distancing requirements could be used to impede poll challengers. In fact, both trainings emphasized that if poll workers got angry about it, we should call the police on them as a first resort. In fact, at the second training, we had a trainee, as they were explaining the social distancing rule, they said, they have to wear a mask, they have to stay 6 feet back, and that's important because they can come behind your table. But if they don't have 6 feet behind your table, they can't come back there. So a trainee asks, so if they're 6 feet back, they can't actually see. And the trainer says, exactly, not unless they've got really good vision or they brought their binoculars. And later on, another trainee asked, what if they get really mad and they're yelling? The trainer responded, quote, 911, call the police on them, have them thrown up out of there. Knowing from these trainings that the city was setting up a confrontational setting in which poll challengers would be completely unable to perform their duties, I told others what I had been told, and I provided the audio that I had recorded of the poll worker trainings. This led to a lawsuit against the Secretary of State filed on Friday, October 23rd. The plaintiffs in that lawsuit, one was a gentleman testifying earlier this afternoon, and another will be your colleague in the House next year. There was a hearing on the suit, and resolution was reached in the morning of Wednesday, October 28th, 6 days before Election Day. That hearing is online at the Court of Claims YouTube page. You can watch it. It concluded with the Secretary of State agreeing to amend the policy to say that poll challengers would socially distance except as necessary to perform their duties. And critically, Judge Cynthia Stevens said, quote, I am more concerned that you get this directive out and amend the frequently asked questions for election workers than I am about this court's docket. Judge Stevens understood how time-sensitive and important this was. Both the hearing and the final order specified that this revised policy was to be made known to poll workers. I can tell you, as a poll worker in the city of Detroit on Election Day, nobody there was advised of this policy change. And in fact, the poll challengers were sitting at the end of our cafeteria table all the way at the end the entire day. Now, you might ask why I didn't tell the challengers myself about the policy, and the answer was because they're for the other side, which leads to another important point that I think you might have some questions about, which is how it is that so many of the poll workers were not real Republicans. Well, at both of the poll worker trainings I attended, they had made the point of announcing that the electronic poll book inspectors included many teenagers. And in fact, at the EPI training I took on October 15th, a clear majority of people in the room were in fact teenagers. So for all the people that came up today that said they applied to be a poll worker but didn't get the job, there was something going on that was coordinating the hiring of employees for a certain purpose. Now you'll know, or maybe you don't know, but yeah, I assume you do. Poll workers are required to specify their party affiliation. They can't say they're independents. Well, what's your party affiliation when you're a minor and you're not even eligible to vote? So I thought that was an important thing. There's a lot more in my affidavit about what I saw happen on Election Day. For example, we were instructed at the training that provisional ballots were used to mislead ineligible voters as essentially phony ballots that would be destroyed by the Department of Elections. It's all in the affidavit and also linked to the recording of the complete poll worker trainings from start to finish. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. DeAngeli. So they told you, you're saying at the training, that they specifically stated that it was intentional to make it difficult for challengers?
Yeah, they actually had a laugh about it. They said, and again, I'm quoting from the recording, which you can listen yourself, but they asked, so if they're 60 feet back, they can't actually see. The trainer interrupts. Exactly. Not unless they got really good vision or they brought their binoculars.
Okay. Other members have questions? Mr. DeAngeli, you've submitted a very substantial amount of additional testimony, so thank you for that, and thank you for keeping it to 3 minutes now. Appreciate that, but we'll look through the longer testimony.
Very good. Thank you.
Next, I have Karen Chopchian.
Hey, thank you so much, Cookie Wookie, Lisa, and Gino Fast. I really appreciate the donation, all the support, you guys. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name.
It's Chopchian. It's fine.
How do you say it?
Karen Chopchian.
Chochin?
Chopchian.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Is that going to destroy my seconds?
No.
Thank
That's
you.
Starting now.
Okay, first off, I'd like to say my affidavit was sent to Washington and stamped, and by a lawyer that worked for Senator John Kennedy. I'm going to make a long story short because a lot of this is repetitious, and I do see a few faces that I do know. And yes, there was a trough of blank ballots in the center for all the world to see, and welcome to take as many as you wanted, especially after hours. I am an administrator. I've done it for many, many years. I've done fraud at banks, embezzlements, and I've never seen administrative procedure so chaotic. It was a circus in there. They were banging on the doors. I didn't know if I was going to go under the table or leave the building. I could not do my job. So if you expected me to do it, I couldn't. It wasn't flowing right. And one example of me not being able to do my job were the military votes. Military votes I was unable to see at all. The first one, forget it. They wouldn't even let me do it because they said, we're starting and you're going to slow down the process, so we're not going to show it to you. So that was the end of that. And I was like at the top of my voice. I needed help. Nobody was helping me except young gentleman, a couple young gentlemen, but specifically Evan Schock. He was an independent, and he came in there to help me because they would not allow me to see the ballots. They were 6 inches apart. I was supposed to stay 6 feet. Was that the law? Well, that's the way it works in there. So he had to help me. He had to like rubberneck himself and tell me what each ballot said. 2.5 hours for 19 ballots. But and the computer screen was at the opposite end of the table. So everything was very awkward. And these ballots, some of these ballots were opened and stapled shut. So I don't see any administrative sensibility about this since I've done paperwork all my life. I don't know the internal organs of the computer, but I did see 1900 a lot too at that military table after those were counted. So there was plenty of those. Yes, do you have something to say?
No, you have 1 minute remaining.
Oh, 1 minute? Okay. So let me just reiterate. Okay, some envelopes were opened and then stapled shut. Poll workers received a select few, would not allow me to see the first ballot. Yes, okay. So long story short, since this is in Washington and since it is a little bit repetitious, the bottom line is I was not able to do my job because of harassment, and we had a parade of Black Lives Matter in rhinestones. I was told not to wear anything. In fact, I'm wearing what I wore today at TCF. So I did not see anything Trump, but I saw a lot of masks that said BLM, rhinestones. Don't forget the rhinestones. But as an administrator, I could not do my job, period. So there wasn't a lot I could do in all that confusion. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And one comment I'd like to make. My husband almost did, he said, why are you going over there? They're not going to do anything. I said, you know what? I'll go. I'm going to go because I won't be able to sleep at night knowing that I didn't do something. But I'd just like to say that.
Do any members have questions?
Really quickly, you
Senator
kept
Tice?
saying you couldn't do your job. What specifically was your title?
I was a poll watcher.
Okay, thank you.
And I couldn't watch the ballots being counted.
Okay. Thank you.
Any
Were
other
you a challenger or a watcher?
I was a watcher.
Okay.
I was a watcher. I watched everything, and I was told to be a watcher. I don't know, a challenger. I guess I was a challenger, but I was trying to believe that I was a watcher. I was watching everything. I was watching.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I challenged, and I lost, and Evan had to help me. I mean, I was, I'm a pretty, I'm capable of taking care of myself, and I don't know why a young man has to help me and assist me in reading the ballots. That's ridiculous. It was all ridiculous. I would invalidate the whole room because that's how ridiculous it was. So that's all I have to say. I'm just,
Thank you
I'm
for your
just
testimony.
disappointed. Okay.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me.
Next, I have Randy Bishop, followed by Lenore Couric, and then David, I think it says Clixby from White Lake, so I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mr. Bishop, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McBroom, and fellow senators. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I'd like to do so by swearing myself in. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Unfortunately, I was here on November the 19th at the joint session between the House and the Senate. And the three clerks that I saw give their personal opinions were not sworn in. And in my opinion, they did not give testimony. One of those clerks is my very own clerk, Cheryl Guy. I live in Antrim County. Bill Bailey's a personal friend of mine, and I'm very familiar with what's going on in Judge Elsenheimer's courtroom on Thursday. We have a problem. As I do my radio show every day, I talk and interact with people all over the state of Michigan through my website and the TuneIn app. The problem we have is that we, the people, don't have faith in what happened in our state. You've heard all the testimony here today. I totally concur. As a poll challenger for the first time in my life of 62 years. I drove down to the roof of TCF Center. I call it Cobo Hall. Patrick Kobeck approached me and said, you need to come see this. I own a radio station. I'm very familiar with the internet, Ethernet cables, routers, and modems. Every single tabulator in that long table was connected to a computer. That computer was connected to the internet via Ethernet cables. We tracked it down. Long extensions of Ethernet cables was piled up to hide what we got down on our knees and found, which was a high-speed commercial router. We saw it with our own eyes. Many people can verify this. Patrick Kobeck went to Christopher Thomas and a Mr. Nathan and a Mr. Baxter, election officials in Detroit. We asked them, as I was witnessing the conversation, are those connected to the internet? No. You have to trust us. I'm willing to take a lie detector test. I know Mr. Kobeck will, and many others that you've heard from today. My question to you, will Chris Thomas, Mr. Nathan, and Mr. Baxter do the same? We want a full forensic audit in Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent County, and Antrim County before you guys can certify this election, because it has not been truly certified based on the fraudulent activities that took place in this state. And before you vote, I wish somebody would reach out to leadership and tell them to please stop saying we haven't seen any evidence to overturn the election yet. We have. Please do not send any electors to the Electoral College on December 14th until those full forensic accountings are done in Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent, and Antrim counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
I will take your questions under oath.
Thank you. And members of the audience, I just beg you again, please, to try to restrain yourself, because I still have a very big pile of cards, and I know a lot of you are waiting. So any questions from members? No. Thank you so much for being here.
I drove all the way down here. I'd love to answer a question.
Senator McDonald.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Randy, at the end of the day, who are we ultimately going to find responsible? I don't want to make this political, Democrat, Republican. Who are we going to find responsible for this, in your mind, your opinion?
One thing I think that would solve the problem, and I would really love to heal not only the nation, but especially the state, I would love to see candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, to agree to our request. We won't accept Biden and Harris as our president and vice president until we're given proof that nothing was illegally done in this election. If you go through a forensic accounting of Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent, and my Antrim County, show us the facts. We want to see the ballots. We want to see the poll books. We want to see the cables, the tabulators. We want to see it all. And if you prove to us, Mr. Biden, with all due respect, we'll accept you as our president. We will accept you as our senators and our state representatives to heal this state and to heal this country. I have not lived for 62 years with kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids to see this election stolen, which is what we believe. Prove us wrong. All you have to do is that auditing of the books, the ballots, in full disclosure with a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, Jocelyn Benson, Governor Whitmer, Mr. Biden in the room. If you do that, the truth will be shown and our land will be healed. But until you do it, we're not going to buy it. The Democrats say, hey, shut up. It's been certified. No, it hasn't. I don't believe Wayne County has truly been certified. With what Monica Palmer and William Hartman went through, they never certified Oakland County. How could the Board of Canvassers certify the state when you don't have all 83 counties certified? They said it was. No, it wasn't. There's laws on the books. I understand the election law. You're going to be held accountable that if you don't send electors or you send the Republican electors, you broke the law. No, I say you responded to a higher law. You responded and appealed to God, and you did the right thing in your own morals and your values and the principles for the people of this state and for our country. And if you don't, God help us.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Hey, thank you so much, Carl, for the donation. I really appreciate all the support.
Lenore Couric, followed by David Clixby, and then...
So I just want to say really quick, for everybody who signed up for the email notification, my email provider just sent me an email saying that because of my content and what I do for a job, they cannot be associated with me. So they just banned my email account. So yeah, I'm going to have to find a new route to send out personal notifications. I will get it worked out, but you can see how corrupt the system is. It's so crazy.
After David would be Linda Sawyer, followed by Holly Spalding.
Thank you, Senator. It's David Clixby, by the way.
It is an X.
Yes,
Okay.
it's an X.
That was an option I considered. Please welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Thanks. My name is Dave Clixby. I'm from Oakland County. I was a poll challenger both in this last election as well as the August primaries. I'm just here today to tell you what I saw and request that you do something about what I view as a somewhat fraudulent election. I was there on Tuesday from 6:30 in the morning till when they stopped the count, and that's the thing that nobody's talked about today. Is things are going very smoothly, and suddenly at 8 o'clock ish, the gentleman on the kiosk said, "Okay, that's it. You can go home. Stop counting." And they had a stack of ballots, a couple hundred. Things were very slow in the afternoon. Things come in, you have some work, and then you don't have any work for hours. The poll workers did their job. They had to be sitting at their table more than the poll challengers, and then we could have more mobility than they could. But when everything stopped, it was like a sudden shock wave through the room, and people didn't, because they were scheduled from 6:30 in the morning till 10 at night. So suddenly they get to go home early, and that's pretty much what I thought. It's like, it's over. It's not fun doing what we were doing in Cobo Hall for 12 hours a day. But the point, the benchmark of the numbers, when Mr. Baxter, I'm not sure if it was Baxter or
Come on, guys, you got to hit that like button. We got to fill this chat up. Take a second right now, hit that like button.
Numbers of the ballots that we counted today up till now was 107,000 ballots. Everybody clapped. It was an acknowledgement of a job well done. 1 minute. So the point is, and then pretty much everybody left. My questioning is, what happened on the midnight shift? Because I came back in at 10:30 in the morning. I was called up and they wanted more help. And at 10:30 in the morning, when I walked into that room, it was like quiet. The dust had settled. It was just kind of a quiet, silent room that was just maybe waking up, but it was still pretty quiet and sleepy in there. So how is it that if they brought in 40,000 votes at 4 o'clock, that they would get all of them done by 10:30? It just doesn't, something about that doesn't make sense to me. And I don't trust that this election was fair and on the up and up. And what are you guys going to do about it? You know, I know you can hear it all, but if we're not going to take action on a definite fraud to the system, if you're just going to kick it down the road and worry about it tomorrow, and maybe this is something that we can correct the next time around, you've missed an opportunity to stop what's going on. I believe.
Thank you, sir.
I believe there was fraud in this election.
Thank you. Mr. Clixby, any questions from members? Senator Santana.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your testimony. I just got one question. Did you trust
Sure.
the election back in 2016 when Trump won and Hillary Clinton lost Detroit by 10,000 votes?
What was did I what the election?
Did you trust the outcome of the election in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost Detroit by 10,000 votes?
Not particularly, because if I remember right, Detroit was, it took them weeks to verify the election, and I just know that it didn't look, Detroit did not look good in the public eye.
Hey, thank you so much for joining the membership program. You're officially a hooligan.
There was just a lot of funny business going on then too. So no, I didn't particularly trust it then.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Clixby. Next, we have Linda Sawyer, followed by Holly Spalding, and then Kurt Hauser.
Hello, greetings.
Hello,
my name is
welcome to the
Linda
Senate Oversight
Sawyer.
Committee.
Hi. And I volunteered as a poll challenger. I am also a registered nurse, and I'll tell you why I'm going to throw that one in. I am from Detroit. I'm from District 6. We have some thick skins where I'm from. And I volunteered the night of the election. So I was the 10 at night to the 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. shift. Definitely a hostile environment when I walked in. I did not expect to see what I saw. And part of the hostility was definitely COVID. They used that as an excuse from the minute we walked in. And it was also an excuse to throw people out. You could have had your mask below your nose, and it was an excuse to throw you out. And the reason I put that in as a nurse is we all know that COVID is spread by droplet. The reason we wear our masks is so that we don't sneeze on people. We know that a sneeze or a cough can spread 6 feet. So we wear a mask so that we don't spread it. So if it's below your nose, it doesn't matter if you're breathing. They use that as an excuse to throw people out. And the whole irony of it is you had to stay 6 feet away from people so that we were forced not to see the ballots. But at the end of the day, when it was time to go home, they had us leave at the end of the room, and it was by escalator. So if you can imagine just a herd of cattle going up the escalator on the way out, that was okay. You could all smash in like a herd of cattle on the way out, and it was fine. So if you were trying to keep people safe, it did not matter at the end of the day. But as you were watching ballots, it made a difference. They kept us away from the ballots on purpose. They used COVID to throw us out. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter. You could all smash in and leave the building okay. It was fine. So they used COVID as an excuse. And as a nurse, I found that despicable. Totally despicable. They used it to keep me from my monitor, told me I had to stay 6 feet away, but yet the supervisor stood between me and the monitor. So I'm going to flash forward to 2 o'clock in the morning. At midnight, Trump was ahead 10%, which was an unusually high amount. To about 2 o'clock in the morning, my monitor went down. It totally rebooted. So unless you can tell me there wasn't a data dump, there wasn't a data breach. I don't believe that the numbers were true because when I went home and woke up, all of a sudden Biden was ahead. We had processed 120,000 votes by midnight out of the 170,000 absentee ballots we were expecting. So I assumed we were missing about 50,000, and all of a sudden Biden was now missing. And Sidney Powell did discuss something about this in Rudy Giuliani's press conference, and I do believe I did witness that. And the voting had stopped in the middle of the night. So unless you were one of the few processing tables, you would not have seen this rebooting of the laptops.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Sawyer? Senator Tice.
Sorry, there's a theme here. So when you were watching people get thrown out, did you know whether or not they were Republican or Democrat as they were getting booted out?
It depends if they clapped or not. Anytime they clapped, you knew that was a Republican. And I had never heard of anyone that wasn't a Republican getting thrown out.
That was my next question. So you're not aware of anybody that didn't have Republican credentials getting...
No, but you could tell us. Our credentials were huge. Any other person just said election challenger in a very small tag, and we had bright yellow wristbands on. So you could tell who we were. We had obstructors too. So I've got more in my affidavit. I just didn't want to be redundant. So I did see election irregularities at my particular table, including non-processing of ballots. There was a certain process that the table went around. So I saw ballots not being processed, just taken out and put back in and stacked up. So they weren't even sent to the tabulator to be processed. This could have been hundreds of ballots. This could have been from a Trump precinct. And Artisia Bomber, who testified earlier, we were at that same table intermittently. She saw it was a Trump ballot. She testified that she saw it being put back in. In my affidavit, these were the tens of ballots that I saw being stacked back up and not tabulated.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, seems to be all. Now, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Hawley Spalding?
Hey, thank you guys all for being here. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate it. I understand that, this isn't the beginning of the meeting, but I was at work. So I'm just covering what I can. I appreciate you guys.
Oversight Committee, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I have 19 things in my affidavit, 19 items of things that I saw. I was at the TCF Center on the evening of November 3rd, election night from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. I was the observer for Precinct 29. Shout out to the ladies at Precinct 29. They were awesome. I gotta say, I did not experience the same kind of hostility that a lot of people did. I was able to talk to the workers before someone told them they weren't allowed to talk to me, and I wasn't allowed to talk to them. A lot of them, this was their first time ever doing this. There was one lady that was there for 30 years. She's been doing it. So I observed a spoiled ballot that came to the table that should have been stopped at the clerk's office. It was put in the problem bin correctly by the supervisor, but that should have never came. The next is they weren't following procedures. So the procedure was that the first person scanned the ballot, it would go to the next person would take out the ballot, read off the ballot number, and confirm that with the first person that scanned it in, and they were not doing that. I asked them why they weren't doing that, and they said they weren't doing that this year. So that's what they told me. I watched ballots that were had the wrong number, that didn't match, the inside ballot did not match the outside of the envelope number. So the second person was verifying it with herself. She wasn't verifying it with the first person. So she noticed that, she said that to the supervisor, that they didn't match. So what they would do is they took white Post-it tape they put it on the outside of the envelope, and they wrote down the number of the inside ballot number on the outside of the envelope. I witnessed that at least 3 times. And once the girl realized what the process was, she stopped mentioning it. She just knew what to do. Then there was, I did notice the Democrats that came in. They came in 2 different groups throughout the evening. There was 2 groups, and they weren't there to watch the process. They were there to watch us. They were standing behind me. I was 6 feet away from the table. They were behind me. They weren't watching what was going on. And at one point, I had 2 girls with their phones up, like they were recording me. I offered them my notes. I said, this is what I've observed. This is what they're doing. They're doing everything, you know, they're catching these things. There were also, I observed torn, stained, any ballots that needed to be duplicated. They were not duplicated. The supervisor asked her supervisor, which is the people with the embroidered shirts, she asked them what they should do, and that supervisor told her to run them through the tabulator and only duplicate them if it was rejected. So anything that had a smudge, a stain, a tear, and I did witness a few of them. At some point, they stopped telling the supervisor that there was an issue with a ballot because they knew they were going to run it through anyway. Didn't matter.
Thank you. So earlier in your testimony, you mentioned running the ballots through the machine and then tearing the numbers off. Were they tabulating them first and then removing the number?
No. So the first person would scan it into the e-poll book. And then he would give it to the second person. The second person was supposed to take out the ballot because the first person never saw the ballot.
Right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. That's when you said scanned the ballot in. I assumed you were talking about putting it in the tabulator. I understand now what you're referencing. Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions from members? Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, I have Kurt Hausauer, followed by Timothy Parker, and followed by Bill Schmidt.
So right now I'm looking, well, for those that didn't hear it the first time I said it, basically my email got banned because they don't agree with what we cover on my channel. So they're not allowing me to send direct text messages to notify you guys every time we go live. I attempted to send an email when I went live 62 minutes ago, and I got a response from the mass text service that I use or used to use, and they basically just told me that they banned my account because they don't agree with what I do. So what I'm seeing is that I think I can create a texting sign-up sheet, and I can put the link in the description. You guys can enter in your information, and every time we go live, I can send out a mass text message, and all of you would be receiving a text message directly from me every time we go live. If you're interested in that, definitely let me know.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. I do first of all want to say that we live in a republic with a democracy. I already gave you my written testimony as
Yes.
well as my affidavit.
Yes.
What I'm going to tell you, just a couple things that are in my sworn statement is I was a challenger down at TCF, and I did experience a lot of things of what people are saying. There was intimidation. There was the cock blocking of us being able to see the actual process where they wanted us to stand at the corner monitor. And
Did you just say cock blocking?
I noticed was it alerted me that the table person who was in charge of our table had told seat number 5 to hang on to 9 ballots because they needed to bring them back to change some numbers on them. So I'm like, oh wait, red flag in my head. So I thought, well, I need to go over by the scanner and see what they're doing over there. And I did, and after a little bit, and I was harassed about my mask because I could only wear it up to my nose because I need to be able to breathe. And I ADA, And anyway, so what I had witnessed was this gentleman scanning the envelope. He raised it up, calling for the table person in charge of our table to come. And he says, what am I supposed to do with this when the ballot number does not match in the book? And he said, well, we're just going to change it. And I said, you cannot change that. You cannot go in the poll book and change it. We need to challenge this. Well, when I did that, summing everything up, I was pulled aside about my mask. The woman and I had agreed that if you get me a shield, I will wear a shield with my mask. I'm good, you know. And I thought that was settled. And while she was talking to me, I could hear the gentleman tell the scanner guy, just scan them and run them through. It's not our job to double check the numbers like this.
1 minute.
So that was the most egregious thing that I had experienced. You'll see the rest of my thing. But days later, my neighbor was walking her dogs. And so I went over in my jammies and I talking to her. And she says, Robin, I want to tell you something. You're political, and I think I need to tell you something. So what she had told me was she works at the local nursing home. And she had gone back to work after being off all summer. And one of the RNs had told her that the activities director held a activity in the building with the seniors. And it was a mock election. It was a mock election with real ballots, and that they were, the staff workers were helping the seniors fill these ballots out, to the point that one gentleman was writing his name as Quincy, but that wasn't his name because he
Hey, thank you so much, Rachel, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
wrote on his thing and was told that the ballots were, in fact, mailed out.
Oh.
So that's a point that I think nobody knows about or has heard about. I've asked them to come and testify, but they said that they're worried about their jobs.
And we'll need, if that issue is going to be looked into, we'll need something, your testimony would constitute hearsay.
I actually have my stuff in writing, and I've given you all and I've given the facility's name, address, and all that information to you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other members have questions?
I do want to remind you, though, that your job is to thoroughly, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we have an ethical, moral, civic duty to make sure that this election is truly an legal process. And to me, it seemed like a lot of infringements and a lot of infractions, a lot of illegal behavior towards people trying to do their legal jobs were in fact violated.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. I need to apologize for Senator Tice, who had to step out for another committee, and will come back as soon as she can. And
So one thing I do want to tell
Senator
you about.
Santana does too, so thank you. We'll keep rolling.
What I want to tell you about is one of the envelopes that came through was the tab was tacked behind the envelope like this, and the ballot was showing like this, and I said, you can't process that. That is not a legal sealed envelope, and I got fought about that.
Were you successful or unsuccessful in challenging that?
Every time I challenged them, which was about 6 times, at seat number 1's thing, they just wanted to put a Post-it on it and we'll look back at it later. It's not our job to worry about that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. And then the gentleman was opening the envelopes, he hit the ballot. Now remember, we do not know if these are Democratic or Republican votes. We just know that we're looking at an envelope that is legal or.
I just want you guys to know this audio stuff that's going on right this second is out of my control. This is not me. It's whoever has the camera.
Okay. Thank you.
So just to tell you, thank you for having me.
Next, we have a card for Bill Schmidt, followed by Matthew Shepard, followed by Maria Menzel-Brown. Mr. Schmidt, welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee, sir.
Thank you, Senator Brown.
You have
all the senators.
You have 3 minutes.
My name is Bill Schmidt. I'm a registered voter here in the state, and I was at the TCF Center. There was a lot of confusion You've heard a lot of testimony about the confusion. And I have to say probably a good part of that confusion is really at your doorstep. And by that being leading up to this election, we knew that there were going to be problems. And Ruth Johnson begged you guys to give the county clerks, city clerks, more time. You didn't. That's a huge chunk of this. Because anytime when there is confusion, there's always doubt. And that's what we're facing now. Likewise, there was a lot of ignorance in the room. Ignorance as to what constitutes a legitimate ballot. What is a signature supposed to be all about? How the entire process goes by. If you're predisposed to see fraud, you will see fraud in just simple mistakes. Mary Smith and Fred Jackson live at the same address. They fill out their ballots. They put them in separate envelopes, the incorrect envelopes. So you have the mismatched ballot with the number, and all this is readily explainable. Unless you want to see fraud, then these are illegal ballots. So part of this problem is just human error. Part of the problem is the folks just didn't have enough time. Part of the problem is a scourge pandemic. From
1 minute.
From my point of view, I saw a lot of poll workers work really hard. And I think there were some hard feelings on part of many of the challengers. There was a lot of sharp elbows, and people's got their feelings hurt. And I think that's what we're seeing here today. Hurt feelings. That's it.
Thank you, sir. You were in the room, I believe, a little while ago when we had a gentleman testify about how he was a poll worker and had received training, and in that training there was some instructions on making it difficult for poll challengers. Were you in the room for that part of the testimony?
I was over in the...
in another room?
Yeah.
Could you hear it, or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so in his testimony, he said, there was these instructions during the training, there was a lawsuit, there was instructions to the Secretary of State to not do those things, and yet that message didn't seem to be delivered. Would you agree with that as being part of the confusion?
I would say that again gets back to the fact that this was a rushed process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which again gets back to how much time did you guys allow the clerks to do their job?
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, there's always a reason for a problem.
So were you a poll challenger, a watcher, a worker? I don't remember, I'm sorry.
I'm a lifelong Republican.
Okay.
Until this election.
Okay. But did you have I just wondered if you had a title. You said you were at TCF.
I was an election challenger, yeah.
A challenger, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I saw it was disturbing, and I could see how people could be, you go in a very large room, it's really hot. I had a little thermometer with me to check my temperature through the course of the day. It was 85 degrees in there. It was really warm. There were too many people. People are shouting, people are yelling. There's the sharp elbows thing. You got folks that are upset with just having to be there. And because they're untrained, and there's that ignorance factor, right? Ignorance isn't the same as stupidity. It's just not knowing something. There's many things that you're ignorant about, probably heart surgery, right? How to fix a carburetor, brake lining, right? There's 1,000 and million things that we're just simply ignorant about. And there was a large Facebook and other social media, come on down, We need you. So you got a lot of people who are just completely untrained, had never done it before, and they're told, look out for fraud. At every single rally the president had, he said this election was going to be filled with fraud. Tweets galore, same thing. This election is a fraud.
Sir, were you working during the shift when the ballots came in late in the morning?
I arrived at 5:55 on the 4th, the day after the election.
5:55 in the morning.
And then I left at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Was that Wednesday?
So according to past testimony, that was the time of the most tension, is when you were there then?
I was there all day. I was there for 16 hours. I was working another poll site on election day.
Okay.
So my day was, election day was busy. And then, so.
Senator McDonald, did you have a question? No? Senator Irwin? No? Thank you very much for your testimony, sir. Appreciate
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this.
Next, I have Matthew Shepard, followed by Maria Menzel-Brown, and then Paulie McNichol. Mr. Shepard?
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Senate
Close
Oversight
to this
Committee.
good afternoon evening.
Not yet.
A constituent of yours from Schoolcraft County ran for county sheriff up there, and he witnessed some issues of concern regarding a county clerk not allowing individuals to question polling and what have you. That testimony has been submitted to your clerk. I also submitted my testimony of my area, and I'll read it out just real quick. Election integrity is the utmost importance to preserving our freedom through what was written by our nation's framers in the Foundation of Liberty through one of the greatest documents ever written, the U.S. Constitution. On Monday, November 23rd, 2020, I attended a Stop the Steal U.S. rally in Lansing, Michigan. Liberals expect us to respect the vote, as one of their signs said, as certified by corrupt government officials. 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the board of canvassers, 3-0 certified with 1 abstention, declaring Biden successful in this election. They should respect the truth. The truth is Biden and his co-conspirators, i.e. Michigan's executive branch, corrupt politicians, Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, and Secretary of State Benson, definitely stole this election in 2020, and most likely in 2018 with Dominion ballot machines. I would also speculate the Democrats did the same in 2008 and 2012 for Obama's reign of destruction in America. Biden's supporters also had signs made up, quote, follow the law, and I responded to them, follow the Constitution, not unconstitutional mandates made by executive orders from a tyrannical governors throughout this nation. Another sign said, BOC, do your job, which I responded, yes, the Board of Canvassers should do their job and verify the votes, not just certify the votes blindly.
One minute.
With all these signs, I imitated Speaker of the House Pelosi tearing up the Trump sign, or State of the Union address, by tearing up their ignorant signs. I found it rather peculiar whenever I visit another neighboring communities, absentee ballots for those who voting in person, for those who feared voting in person with all the fear-mongering in this nation, along with all of our active duty military personnel absentee ballots being handled behind closed doors by election polling workers. When I inquired as to why, I was told that was the way they decided to do things. Sadly, the GOP is allowed to pass 2 elections to be stolen, and top Michigan legislature leaders, Speaker of the House Lee Chatfield, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, continue to pander to the tyrannical governance. Respectfully, Matthew Shepard, co-chair of Constitution Party Midwest Region, and Vice Chair second vice chair for State Taxpayers Party of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, were you, and forgive me if you mentioned this at the beginning, were you at TCF on Election Day?
Not
or the day after?
TCF, just my local areas.
You were a poll watcher or worker at another?
I wasn't a poll watcher. I was just constitutional advising.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Parker, who I called earlier, has come. So if Mr. Parker, are you?
Hey, thanks for being here, everyone that just showed up. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat. I was just speaking with a person who works for a company that does mass text messaging, and they wanted $900 a month to send out 29,000 text messages. So obviously I cannot afford that, but I'm still going to dig into it. I'm going to figure it out. For now, join the Discord. Get the Discord app on your phone. It's free. It's not difficult to use. All of us hooligans are in the Discord, and we would be more than happy to help you understand how to use the app. I post in there every single time I go live. We constantly have information and fact checking and just good conversation 24 hours a day. So please join the Discord. It is worthwhile, and right now that's the perfect way for me to reach you and make sure that you're notified every time I go live. I'm going to post a link right now.
Election Integrity Fund, and the way I understood, there were at least 135 table groups, and I'm not sure how many Election Integrity Fund people were in there, but I knew my son was in there and had to leave to go pick up his sons. And I did not believe that they were granting other Republicans to replace them. We did know that they were kicking some out, and so I knew they were short, and yet they came out and said, no, they had plenty, and they would not let us in. I was there when they were boarding up the windows. And I don't know that Charlie the Duff, he showed up and interviewed somebody, and then they started letting in about 6 at a time. I never did make it in before I was too tired. I can't stand very long, so I very often had to sit down. But it should be amazing to us that only Republican and nonpartisan workers were denied access to legally observe what is supposed to be a fair and transparent election. And it should not even be questioned when a Republican watcher or challenger is not at each table group. In the name of honesty and integrity, every Democrat involved should demand that the process stop when without Republican eyes. This lack and the cheering and the denial should be regarded as reprehensible and manifestation of fraud with no other proof required. I mean, I've heard several times today, do you have proof? It's like, man, when you're denied access, that should be sufficient proof.
1 minute.
And as legislatures, I would just encourage you guys, the least you can do is pass legislation to require maybe a revote. I heard the one gentleman not too long ago talk about the different counties. To me, what would be a few more weeks if we actually made people feel like we had a transparent and fair election? Because right now, I would agree, most people that I know do not believe at all that we're anywhere close to that. And I would just, for the sake of the Republic, I'm 67 years old, and I cannot stand the idea that our country could go down under an unfair election.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any members have questions? Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Next, I have Maria Menzel-Brown, followed by Paulie McNichol, followed by Marion Sheridan. Is Maria here? Maria, not in the room. Is she coming? Okay, we'll set that aside for now. Is Paulie McNichol here? Welcome. After Paulie, it would be Marion Sheridan, followed by Patty Kamegata. Oh, she wrote here that she was not at TCF, so put that one aside. Then it would be Joe Farkas. So Paulie McNichol, welcome.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
I was at TCF Center as a poll challenger, kind of the belly of the beast. Real quick, it's a longer story than this, but what I watched, one of the incidents, Mrs. C, it was written on her shirt, brought down a box of ballots. Since they're in stacks of 50, I could estimate it was about 500 ballots. Gave this box of ballots to 3 ladies sitting at a table just off the platform. Excuse me, I'm nervous. One of the ladies, the far left one, tried to get our attention. She ended up giving us notes that were stuck on all these ballots, the sticky notes. She ended up giving us 4 of these notes. They read, received November 4th, enter as November 2nd. These 3 ladies were entering these ballots in to the verified voter system. She also got my attention, turned around, tried to get me to see her laptop monitor, which I leaned in and saw, and she wanted me to see the signature. The signature on the screen was some huge circles like that, the signature. Signature on the ballot was little tiny vertical sticks. It wasn't even in the same solar system, definitely different signatures. And this one lady that was trying to help us ended up being Jesse Jacobs, the whistleblower. Onto the tabulators, I witnessed multiple times stacks of 50 ballots being put through the tabulators multiple times. If they'd have been cleared, we would have no way of knowing, because the supervisors for the tabulators made sure that the metal boxes they put the finished ballots in were so far behind the tabulators and made us stand behind those boxes. We were at least 12 feet from them and wouldn't allow us to get any closer to them.
Hey, thank you so much, Thomas, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
Not out, and said that we had plenty of us in there. Wednesday night, there were 10 of us in the room. I mean, us as Republican poll challengers, sorry. Yet, when I left, there were still people in the lobby that were being barred from coming in. Still only 10 Republican poll challengers in the room. I witnessed the military ballots being duplicated. I just thought it was strange that only Biden's name was selected, no down ballot. And I watched multiples, I don't know how many I watched, and not one of them was for Trump. I thought that was really strange, especially being military. You must know in your heart that this election was fraudulent. There's no question of it if you really are sensible. And we all pray that you do the right thing. Pay attention to Article 2, Section 1 and Clause 2, and name the electors for Donald Trump. And I really appreciate you listening to me. Oh, good timing.
Perfect timing, yes. Thank you for your testimony. I know that we're planning to hear from Jesse at a later date. So thank you for that. Do any other members have a question? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did Maria come into the room by any chance? No, okay, well, we'll call on her later then, again. This one here says that she's unable to be here, but she's attached the affidavit, so. That brings us to Joe Farkas. Joe Farkas, followed by Terry Beus, followed by Vicky Caller. Is Vicky here? Why don't you come on up? If Joe Farkas or Terry Beus can hear me, come on this direction towards the room. After that'll be Nancy Tisso.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome to the Senate committee, Vicky.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I start off like, my table that I had was, they didn't get very many ballots, probably 200 for the most night, so we weren't that busy. But so one thing that I had seen was the truck that came in between 3:30 and 4, and there was golf carts, and I was sitting on one of the golf carts back there because my table wasn't doing anything, and I was just sitting there, and I seen the door open. I heard a lot of commotion about what were all these ballots. And then so I walked over and I went by the door and I seen the white truck from the city, looks like, you know, the city white pickup trucks, and they had the symbol on it. And there was one guy driving it, and he had a mask on, but looking at his eyes, you know, I would say Asian descent. And I know he brought in at least 3 dollyfuls of the boxes, the white boxes with the paper cardboard on them, and took them over by the platform that the people were standing on. Somebody did mention, like, where did they come from? He goes, I don't know, I'm just the driver, was his statement. And that's basically, you know, I don't know where the ballots came from. I know it was after 3 o'clock in the morning that they came, and there was quite a few of them, and there was quite a few people that seen it come in. And they looked just like the ballot boxes that were brought to the tables. And you could see the yellow envelopes of the voter bag, you know, that were in there.
I don't want to rush you. Can I ask a question, or?
Yeah, you can ask a question. I just
So,
nervous.
were you watching them open the boxes after they were unloaded?
No, I did not open, no, because where they took the boxes at was over, because I was back by the back door, because that's where my table was at, and I didn't want to leave that table, because they kept, like, every once in a while, you get a stray ballot. So I had watched him take them over by the table, and I know I counted at least 3 trips, but I don't know if he made any more, because then I went back to watching my table.
All right. Does any other member have any questions? Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
All right, thank you.
Joe Farkas. Is Joe here? Terry Begus. Is Terry here? And just in case I'm mispronouncing that last name, she's from Plymouth, so Terry from Plymouth. Nancy Tisso? Is that you? All right, great. After Nancy, I have John McGrath and Donna Ross. Welcome to the Senate committee. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm from Macomb County, and I was a ballot challenger on Monday the 2nd at TCF, and on Tuesday, the election day, I wanted to work at the polls because I heard, you know, things about the polls. So on Tuesday...
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Can you talk a little louder for the
sure.
microphone? That'd be great.
Closer.
Thank you.
So Monday I worked at TCF, and I watched them, you know, on Monday they were taking the ballots out of the outer envelope. And it went pretty smooth, I have to admit. There were a couple of things that concerned me, and I, you know, addressed them. One was 80% of the ballots that were at my table, 93, were closed with packaging tape. And I thought that was odd. You know, I mean, 83%, like 80% of the ballots were closed with packaging tape. That seemed different to me. Another thing that I thought was like horrible is that whoever like marked the outside, the ballot number on the outside of the outer envelope, they wrote it in like a light green crayon. And so you couldn't, you know, 6 feet away, you couldn't see if that ballot number matched the ballot number that was marked on the outside of the envelope. And then, you know, what I thought was odd was the people that were just taking the ballot out of, well, they were taking the ballot out of the inner sleeve, these 2 ladies, and they were turning it around so that the number would be on top. You know, they'd take it out, they'd open it up, they'd look at it, fold it back up, put it in to make sure the number was on the top. But they had ink pens, and I thought, why do they have ink pens by where they're at? So I kind of brought a lawyer over, and we thought, why do you need an ink pen by where they were at. All their job was to turn the ballot over. So that day wasn't, that bad. Then the next day I went to Henry Ford High School. Is that all right?
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, Henry Ford High
Sorry.
School. And when I was the only Republican in the gymnasium, there were 6 precincts. And after like about 2 hours, I realized they were giving out ballots to people that had an absentee ballot red question mark next to their name. And so I kind of like stopped the process, and we went around and everyone was giving out ballots to people that had that question mark. And we ended up calling the war room in Lansing, because I said, no, they have to call the clerk and have the ballot spoiled before they can issue them another ballot. And they didn't agree with me, so we got that straightened out, and that was true. They had to call the clerk. Well, the clerk wasn't answering. They weren't getting any answers. So I know they were just continuing to give people ballots that had, the question mark, because no one would answer at the clerk's office. And when I went to precinct 275, the girl, I said, what are you doing when they have the question mark? She goes, oh, I just write their names down. And she had a list of like 25 people. I go, no, that's not the process. And she goes, what do you mean? And it turned out she wasn't even a poll worker. She was supposed to be a Democratic poll challenger. But when she got to the building, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't, obviously she wasn't trained well, because she didn't even know what her job was.
Thank you.
All right. But I mean, to me, people got 2 ballots.
Thank you. Senator Lucido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Nancy. You mentioned lawyers. How many lawyers were there?
There was probably 5 Democratic lawyers.
5 Democratic lawyers. How many
No,
Republican
no,
lawyers?
There wasn't one until like 5 o'clock. I was there 6:30 in the morning. She didn't come till 5 in the evening.
What time did you get there?
6:30,
What time did you leave?
8:30. I finally left. None of them could, balance their
Did any of the lawyers or make statements regarding this hand truck, cart, dolly that had all these ballots in it?
No, that's at the TCF. I was at a high school.
Okay.
But the one lawyer said, well, he was going to take that list of 25 and he was going to spoil the ballots. I don't know.
All right, that gets me some idea. But there was no lawyers where you were, except Democratic lawyers? How'd you know there were Democratic
They
lawyers?
told me. I was the only Republican in the whole room.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
testimony. Did you submit things in writing?
I did, and a video.
Okay.
affidavit.
Thank you. John McGrath. Is John here? Yes, sir. And after John, Donna Ross, followed by Eugene Greenstein. Welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee, Mr.
Thank you,
McGrath.
sir.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chairman McBroom and committee members. My name is John McGrath. I'm a registered voter here in Michigan. On Wednesday, November 4th, I learned that tens of thousands of ballots had arrived at TCF Center from Wayne County, which was after the election deadline of 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd. Surprised and concerned that so many ballots appeared after the election deadline, I felt compelled to drive to TCF Center to volunteer as a nonpartisan election challenger. I witnessed ballot after ballot being counted for unlisted voters. Unlisted voters are ballots not registered in either the electronic nor the supplemental paper-based absentee voter poll book. The unlisted voters had no dates of birth, in contrast to the registered voters. The poll workers continually, and they were being instructed to do so, I don't blame them for this, but they continually entered the default birth date of January 1st, 1900 into the computer system to process these votes. Since working at the TCF Center, I have read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that they have not been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election. I wish that were the case. Tens of thousands of ballots arriving after the election deadline provide a minimum of tens of thousands of reasons to investigate and audit these ballots. I've also read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that Michigan's certification process should be free from threats and intimidation. The problem is that Michigan's certification has not been free from threats and intimidation. I refer this committee, I refer the people's representatives in Michigan to the affidavit submitted by Ms. Monica Palmer, chairperson of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, and by Mr. William Hartman,
1 minute,
member of the Board of Canvassers of Wayne County. And finally, if you read their affidavits, that is for Ms. Palmer and Mr. Hartman, it is clear that they did not certify Wayne County's results. And since they did not certify Wayne County's results, how can the Board of State Canvassers certify any results? It's a mess. It's a mess for the Michigan legislature. But it's time for the Michigan legislature to step up and step in, and because at this point, I don't see how you can send any electors to the Electoral College. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Do any members have questions? Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you.
Ooh, the crybabies are heavy. They're heavy today. Just had to ban a crybaby in the Discord already. I think that's the first time I ever had to ban somebody in the Discord. Yeah, don't come to our sanctuary and trying to pollute it. You're on your own when you go to the Discord. Ain't nobody can save you out there. Yeah, man, so many crybabies in the chat I see. I feel bad for my hooligans. You gotta call them out to get them banned. I can't see every trash bags comment. Big shout out to everyone who's been making donations, joining the membership program, becoming official hooligans, purchasing merch. I would not be able to do this without you. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are what's keeping the channel going, so thank you so much. I really appreciate all the viewers who are here to learn and see what's going on and see it live instead of watching it manipulated and cut and, you know, pushed to somebody's specific agenda. It's not what we do here. We just show what's actually happening live. So yeah, I appreciate all of you for being here.
Initially. And so I became certified as an independent poll challenger. And we take it seriously. And we went to this one woman's house to do a mock poll challenging, a mock, election voting process stuff, and learn as much as we could. And it was helpful. And when I was there, I witnessed a video of the workers, the poll workers from Detroit, Wayne County, and it was sickening how they were training them that we were the enemy, we were to be the enemy, they were to block the votes, or not block the votes, but block the view of what was going on, to keep us 6 feet away, taught to intimidate us. It was disgusting. I'm not sure if it was on YouTube or what it was, but it was sickening. That's not what we were taught. We weren't taught anything like that. We had rules to follow. We had regulations to follow. We had to wear lanyard around our neck to identify that we were a poll challenger. I was with an independent company, so it said poll challenger. So they knew who we were. But anyhow, I got cold feet and decided, because of what I saw on the training video, I anticipated problems at Cobo, and I was apprehensive. So I chose Dearborn for 2 days. I did Monday and Tuesday at Dearborn. They asked me Tuesday night if I wanted, got a call, they needed help at Cobo Wednesday. I was beat. I had worked long hours both days, and I said no. However, Wednesday morning, I got a call to action.
1 minute.
Pardon me? Yeah. Got a call to action Wednesday morning that they needed help. They were understaffed there, and about the treatment that was going on is what I have heard said today is what I heard what was going on. And I said, BS, I'm going. So a friend of mine and I got in the car and we came down. When we came down to Cobo, we drove down, we went in, we walked in with a lawyer and some other people. There was no security guard. We parked on the roof of Cobo, and there was no security guard when we walked in. The other gal that went with me was being trained in the hallway. I was already certified, so I wanted to go back to the car to get my phone off the seat. So I went back up to the roof where I came in the door, and there was a security guard now there. Uh-oh. Do you want me to leave you hanging?
Well, you've written it down.
Can I finish it? Can I finish my sentence?
If you can finish in 15.
Okay. Uh-oh. Do you want me to leave you hanging?
Well, you've written it down.
Can I finish it? Can I finish my sentence?
If you can finish in 15
Okay, so there
seconds
was
or
a
so.
security guard there, and I had to have other people get my phone for me because I couldn't leave the building. What I didn't get was there were 3 people that they said if us 3 people leave, there was a crowd of people that they couldn't get in that were volunteers. And they said, if we're leaving, there's 3 of us leaving, can 3 come in? He said, nope. And it was all supposedly due to COVID and overcrowding. Come on. We know how big TCF is. No, I don't buy that.
Thank you.
But anyhow, I was there when they boarded up the windows so we couldn't see in, and I missed going into the counting room just by a hair. They had called in some independent poll challengers, and I turned around, anyhow, they swooped them in there, and then there was nothing for hours. We went upstairs and there was nothing, no more people going in, but there was media going in, there were attorneys going in, but no poll challengers, no,
Thank you for the detailed account in your thing that you passed out to us.
No, that's it, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in the counting.
I said thank you for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I
Thank you.
thought you were asking for more.
No.
Okay, I should know. The
Do any
buzzer
members
went
have
off.
a question for Terry? No? Thank you so much, ma'am.
Hey, thank you so much, Steffi, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
Have Donna Ross. After Donna, Eugene Greenstein, followed by Sylvia Halpert. Welcome to the Senate Committee, ma'am.
Stop spamming my chat, Randall. I don't care how you feel about the election or who you voted for, but you're not going to sit there and post the same thing over and over again.
It's Rana like Donna, but, not Rhoda, not Rhonda, not
If it's any
Rhoda.
consolation to all of you today, my handwriting's not that great either. So, but I have a 2-letter name, so I get away with it. But please go ahead, Rana.
Thank you, Senator.
You have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. I want to demonstrate to you just how official the harassment was at TCF on November 4th. I got there at 1 p.m. having been told, we need Republican poll challengers. And I went running down, and I had been certified as such, but we couldn't get in. And so an hour or 2 later, I thought, well, maybe I'll try, I'll be an independent poll watcher. So I switched lanyards, and now I'm independent. And eventually I was able to get in, but not until 4 p.m. And I had gotten there at 1. When all these pizza boxes went up so we couldn't go in, there was just a mob of people waiting to be poll watchers. And a man came out and had a very big presence and very big man, and he said, please, I need room, everybody back. I'm the lawyer for the city of Detroit. So it's like, okay, and I have something to say. So he then introduced a man who told us that he was in charge of the poll watchers, monitoring them. And people say, well, and he said, and there are every single Republican challenger is here. I was like, no, they're not. They're not at all. And he said, well, there are 130 whatever signed in, and none signed out. And people next to me protested. I went out for lunch. Nobody said sign out. And he said, well, people chose not to sign out. I'm telling you that there was no signage. There was no signage for sign out. Big sign for sign in. Turns out you were supposed to sign out at the same place, but there was no signage. And the exit was 50 feet away. So when you wanted to leave, your direction was away from the sign out. So just wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's helpful information on how the room was laid out. Any questions? No? Thank you. Next, Eugene Greenstein. After Mr. Greenstein, I have Sylvia Halpert and Dr. Linda Lee Tarver.
Thank you very much, Senators. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but since no one really said what I wanted to say, and I did file an affidavit with the Republican lawyers, so I have no idea whether that comes to you guys or not.
Well, you have your 3 minutes, so go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. My name is Eugene Greenstein. I'm from Farmington Hills. I was a poll chairman in Detroit on Tuesday, November the 3rd, and a GOP challenger on Wednesday at TCF, answering an emergency request for challengers. And my basic comment is there needs to be a forensic audit. Why do I think so? I observed that envelopes, which were scanned in some cases, would have a different ballot number than was on the envelope. I was at board 55 in TCF. The ballot number, though, was in the poll book, as was the number on the envelope. The situation would result in a challenge ballot. The situation should result in a provisional ballot, because there's no one knows who voted for anything, because they didn't match, excuse me. And other situations which I just couldn't follow would be processed through also where there was this mismatch. And so my question is, how can there be how is it that there's this lack of integrity between the envelope and the ballot, which results in a counted ballot, when on Tuesday, I knew who voted at the polls? This absentee ballot process is a total disaster in terms of accountability, opportunity for fraud, etc. And good people can want to do good things, and bad people can want to do bad things. And I think we've seen a lot of problems here because the voter and the ballot don't go together. And that's my comment. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Greenstein. Any questions from members? No. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Did you submit your testimony in writing, or? No. Oh, okay.
And give me an email address.
Yeah, we can do that, so thank you. The email that we've been using for this committee is Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, so, but if I have a spare card somewhere, I'd write it down. The next up, we have Sylvia Halpert.
Delos Flower. If you made it in the Discord and you were picking fights with my hooligans, you are the only person to ever be banned from Discord. Discord is not the chat. You don't have the freedom to just start shit in my Discord. You can stay here on the chat if you want to do that.
Volunteered at the TCF Center in Detroit. Our family immigrated from Canada. I love this country. And what I saw down in the TCF Center made me very sad and disappointed. There seemed to be a concerted effort to let us know that we were not welcome, very unfriendly and at times hostile. At one point, I witnessed a challenger walk up to a lady to look at the ballot. She turned aggressively, brandishing a long metal letter opener to the gentleman, and in a threatening manner pointed the sharp object towards his chest and demanded that he move back. He backed up and she took a step forward toward.
Say goodbye to Scott Bradley. He's gone because he's an idiot.
She said it at least 4 times. Another time I was standing more than 6 feet away from a counting board table when a man forcefully demanded, "Get back, COVID, COVID, get back." It was impossible for us to see what he and anyone else was doing at the table. And clearly that was his goal. Several of us challengers watched quietly for over a long, long time for the military ballots. At one point, several police officers came in and stood between us and the ballots, a little over to the side, but a man came up and said that we were to disperse. I said we were being respectful and standing more than 6 feet away. He said, it has nothing to do with COVID. You are interfering with the process. We were standing quietly doing nothing, but we spread out in the aisles like good little sheep. We couldn't see, of course, from there. I watched workers take hours sorting military ballots into containers labeled with corresponding precinct numbers. In all our time there, I never saw those ballots being taken and processed. It was a long, long lag time, and during that time, the people at the counting board sat idly doing nothing. And I was wondering, why are they taking so long to get these to the table so they can be processed? And it occurred to me maybe they were wanting us to leave. So after a long wait, about 4:30 or so, it was starting to get dark. We left the building. That night at about 10:30, I received a call from a gentleman whose number I had gotten while I was there. He said, "Are you still in the building?" And I said, "No, I'm getting ready to go to bed." And he said, "Well, we've been following a truck and it just entered the TCF building. Can you watch for it?" And I said, "Well, I'll call somebody." And I did, and got one of the ladies who testified today and to look for it. When we came out, cardboard was being put up on the windows so that, to block the view from the group outside who wanted to come in and were refused admittance. When we exited the building, another large crowd was out front of the building complaining they were not allowed in and had been there for hours, some of them up on the roof, and there had been a man up there keeping them out. And we talked to some.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't give you a 1-minute warning, so please go ahead and wrap up your comments.
We just talked to a couple of newspapers and TV news and went on home. But that's only a small portion of what happened.
Thank you. Do you have other written for us? Thank you.
Not today, but I will send it to you. Can you tell me that same address again that you told?
It's Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? No, thank you very much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Goodness, I better get my boots on. All these tears, all these crybabies. The crybabies are not oppositions of me, especially because I'm neutral. Okay, so you guys need to get that straight. It's people trolling, people spamming, people being hateful. I've already been called the N-word 6 times in the last 2 hours. So those are the crybabies I'm talking about. I ain't talking about my hooligans. I'm not talking about my supporters. And I'm not talking about people who are just here to learn and see what's happening. I really appreciate all of you guys. But yeah, no, I ain't got no tolerance for trolls today. So you go ahead and speak up and say my name so I can kick you right out of this chat permanently, idiots.
I have been under 7 years under Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. In that role, I was the Community Affairs Director and election integrity liaison. I assisted in preparing cases for referral to Attorney General Bill Schuette to prosecute for voter fraud. Ballot harvesting in Detroit, Flint, and Pontiac has been going on for decades. It's a misdemeanor to give your ballot to anyone not allowed by law to receive it, and it's a felony to take that ballot. People have been prosecuted in Michigan over the years as a result. Ballot stuffing, ballot curing, and complete fraud in the issuance, handling, and processing of ballots has not been addressed, and no election after 2020 should be considered fair unless we get this right this year. The complete hate, disdain, and apathy for Republican poll challengers is but one way of how elections are stolen in Michigan. Before COVID-19, and I'm talking to the Democrat in the House, and in every election in the last 25 years, Republican poll challengers were removed by the police, especially in Pontiac. MCL 168.733 says, the election inspectors and other election officials on duty shall protect a challenger in the discharge of his or her duties. Shall protect is not an option. Shall protect. It is never done in the urban areas. Never, never, never in the urban areas. In the 34 years I've been working for the state of Michigan, and certainly not the 29 years I've been working at the Secretary of State. It also says in subsection 4, a person shall not threaten or intimidate a challenger while performing an activity allowed. You shall not threaten or intimidate. It is a misdemeanor for what they have done, these inspectors, to continue to intimidate and throw out Republican poll challengers. It has been going on too long. 71% of Detroit precincts, our largest city, cannot be recounted. As always expressed as minor clerical errors, these are not minor. There are touch points in the process for these ballots to be, and the accounting to be done, those ballots to be open. In order for this fraud to be corrected, we need a complete audit. You need to have optics on it. This has always been done in communities of color. It needs to stop. Enforce the laws and ensure, bring in independent inspectors. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. Any members have a question? Senator Tice.
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your testimony. Also very compelling. Do you have, when you speak about an audit and a complete audit, what would you see as the appropriate type of audit? Would it be a forensic audit? Would it be a hand recount of ballots? What would you like to see done?
71% of Detroit cannot be recounted, which means that the boxes that the ballots are in cannot be opened. 71% is egregious, and it happens in these communities of color. So if you cannot recount it because of a, quote, clerical error, according to Secretary Benson, these are not clerical errors. These ballots are hidden in. You can hide them in there until you're able to open them. There are processes that have been allowed so that when you cannot balance your precinct, you can go to a counting board or a board to evaluate them. At that time, those errors are supposed to be fixed, and they can open up the ballots. The only way to open up the ballots right now to get your ideas on it is for you to do a complete forensic audit that needs to be done to open up those ballots, because a recount is only going to get you 71% of the ticker tape that says these are the numbers, and there are bad ballots inside. You cannot look at the ballots if you do a recount. You need an audit in order to do a forensic audit to look at those ballots. Some absentee ballots that were coming in were not even folded. How do you have a pristine, flat ballot without being folded if it was an absentee ballot? And therein lies some of the problems. And once it goes into the machine multiple times, you cannot open up the case. If you put the wrong number on the seal, you can't open it up. If you put in, if it doesn't balance, you can't open it up. And so there's problems with what's going on we need to open up those ballots for the integrity, because we cannot move forward in any further election.
Can I ask a follow-up? So I am curious, because I understand that a lot of them didn't balance. What is the appropriate process once you get done with the election and you've done the ballot count and you realize that they're not balancing? What would the appropriate process be right then?
The precinct inspectors or the precinct captain who is supposed to be trained are supposed to contact the clerk's office if there's any problem with balancing. You're supposed to know and have your hand on how many provisional ballots, how many spoiled ballots, where are the missing ballots, what's going on. You're supposed to take care of it at the precinct level and then close your precinct. But if some reason you're not able to, there's a counting board where you take your ballots to turn them in to say, I testify that I did this and I've got my paperwork, I've got my poll books, I've got the notes written down in the poll books or in our electronic poll books. And that counting board is supposed to say, you're not in balance. Let us open up that container and make sure those poll books we can look at the ballots. We physically can look at them. But in these urban areas, they're lazy and they're not taking this, the civic right very seriously, or their duties very seriously. They take an oath when they do as a precinct inspector. They are not taking it seriously and have not for years. And the apathy toward the official duties here has become egregious, because once they decide not to balance that precinct, then it goes through and you have the hot mess that you had, where you have these canvassers, board of canvassers, 4 people that is supposed to amend that hot mess. Flint has never been able to balance. Never been able to balance, and there's touch points across where they have the ability to open that up, to do a quote honest open of the ballot itself, the container itself. If you're not able to open that container up, which after it leaves the counting board, you're not able to do it unless you get a court order or an audit. And no one has been brave enough to do it. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. We have nothing. And when we did a recount before, we saw some of the most egregious things when we looked through and did recounts before in Detroit. There's some things in there that should never have been in there. And that is what I'm telling you about when you're able to open up those ballot boxes. But it is not going to be at the Detroit canvasser level, and certainly not at the Michigan State Board of Canvasser level.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tice. Vice Chair Irwin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions for you
Sure.
that I'm going to ask you based on the fact that you've been around for a while. You've been an activist. You've been where you work for the Secretary of State's office. So that's why I'm going to ask you these things. I think my first question is, are you aware that there are audits done on past elections, and in any of your official or unofficial capacities, did you ever have the opportunity or cause to review those audits that looked into things like dead voters and all that kind of stuff
Yes.
that we've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And did you find that the answers to those questions were that, in fact, these were clerical errors in previous audits that have been done by the Legislative Auditor General and been before this committee in the recent years?
So I've worked with Chris Thomas for years, and I've submitted some illegal stuff that I felt was illegal to them to investigate, and they were investigated. How they remedied it was not according to what I felt was necessary. There have been clerical errors, if you call it clerical. The law concerning your ability to be a precinct inspector, a poll worker, is that you have to have a sufficient clerical acumen in order to perform the duties, which means you should be able to read and write and add and subtract. And you should be able to perform the duties without any inhibitions. We know that there are over 500 precincts in Detroit, and many of the people who will come and get trained, some of them will not show up. But the ones that do show up, they are not given sufficient training on how to legally perform the duties that they have. However, if they are told that the challenger is the enemy, this person standing behind you is the enemy, and they have not been told that the person behind you must be protected, you will not be able to address some of the oversight, laziness, ignorance of the law, ignorance of the process, and lack of training. And so one of the ways that ballots are, the election fraud occurs is when you have workers who are not properly trained. And that's where we are finding is lack of training. They're in a hurry. They're not sure what to do.
Hey, thank you so much, Daniel, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
Fraud. I would have referred all of them to the Attorney General if it were me. But Chris Thomas and others decided not to. They tried to remedy those things as best they can, but unless you put the full faith into the law and start prosecuting people, we will continue to see what we've been seeing. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. And I would not want to run on a Detroit city nothing at all. I would not want to run in the city of Detroit knowing that there have been, quote, clerical errors, that some of them are illegal. There are ballot curing problems. We have seen people walk into the clerk's office in Detroit with a stack of 75 ballots. Janice Winfrey is standing next. Ballots. If you don't compare the signatures, you toss the signature out. You don't compare the signatures, you're supposed to. It's in the law. We are not following the law, and we are not following it in every election. And the larger the jurisdiction, which are people of color, people who look like me, the more fraud that can be inserted into stealing an election. And that is a problem, and we need to stop it.
Okay, I almost am afraid to ask another question.
Ask the second question.
You've read the audits, you've seen them. We both read the audits.
They know me, so
yeah, I know. I'm glad we both read the audits. I just
I'm
keep putting it out there that, in fact,
Yes,
it is part of Michigan election law that we have audits, and those audits have been done in recent elections, and they'll be done after this one as well. And you know, I just want to put that out there. And then also, you know, one of the things
you're talking about a
post-election. That's
yes,
right.
but they're insufficient.
I appreciate your
They're insufficient for what the purpose is. I'm asking for a forensic audit of the election itself, looking for the fraud and illegal votes.
Yes, and I'm wondering why the Trump campaign didn't want to do a recount, which would have been the normal process.
Why would you recount 71% of the votes cannot be recounted?
You know what? That's a problem. I want to agree with you on that.
I'm just telling you,
I'm trying to build up to agreeing with you.
Why waste your money and time? It costs money to do a recount. Why waste your money when 71% of the votes that you need to look at physically cannot be even seen?
Okay.
And
that builds up to my next
29%,
question.
I'm not paying $2 million or $4 million for 29% of the ballots that can be counted, because the rest of them cannot be counted.
That's one of the reasons why I voted against the changes to the recall law that made it so onerous and difficult for people who wanted to look into these issues.
Open up the ballots.
The
Yes,
issue that you mentioned, and I just want to highlight for the committee, because I really agree with you on this, is that, you know, when you have a situation where there's a discrepancy at that precinct, those precincts should be recountable, and we need to find a way to make that so. And I think that what you're going to find here in Lansing is that there are a whole lot of Democrats who are going to agree with that. We want these ballots to be looked at. We want elections to be run in a safe and secure manner. But the problem is that this legislature has been controlled by Republicans since the 80s. The state Senate has been controlled by the Republicans since the 80s. And so my question to you is, after the 2016 election, when we saw the problems that we saw that you just hinted at, when we had agreement apparently between a lot of folks about the fact that these precincts should be recountable, why did we see no changes in the law to address any of these issues while we had a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate?
So I'd be happy to answer that question. That's a very simple one. We have sufficient laws on the books. So my brothers and sisters in the Republican GOP has done their due diligence to pass laws, make laws. The enforceability of the laws, however, because in Grand Traverse County, we're not having this problem. In certain counties, that Van Buren County, we're not having this hot mess problems that we have in Pontiac and in Flint and in Detroit. We don't have that. So if you want Republicans to pass more laws, why don't the Democrats in their cities enforce the doggone election laws so that that we can have fair and just elections? Because I just gave you the law. It's a felony for me to give my friend, next door neighbor, my ballot. It's a misdemeanor for me to give it to them, and it's a felony for them to turn it in. A felony. It is not enforced. And we have situations in the inner cities and these Democrat-controlled areas, because that's what we're talking about. Democrat-controlled areas cannot seem to balance their elections. And because they have been habitual violators of the inability to balance their election because of either ignorance, apathy, lack of leadership, or lack of caring about their election integrity, because if you add more laws to the books, you still have people who will not follow the law. And if you don't enforce the law, if you don't bring in Republicans to say, I am going to be a poll worker, if you need 5 Republicans in the building, make sure 5 workers are. Contact the Michigan Republican Party. Ask them for 5 people or 25 people or 200 people to work it. And then when the challenges come in, you protect them. You don't put them out. You don't call the police on them. You're supposed to protect them according to the law. If you follow the law in the urban Democratic controlled areas, then we would not be here today. I certainly wouldn't be here. But in 25 years that I've been monitoring elections, working with the Secretary of State, the last 8 doing election integrity, it's been a hot mess in the same Democrat controlled areas. We don't need any more laws. We need to enforce the laws, and we need to open up the doggone ballot boxes.
But we are agreed that we need to change the laws on recounting precincts. We do agree that we need to change the law on recounting precincts, right?
Pardon me?
We should change the law on recounting precincts. That was
We're not changing the laws for recounting.
But the question was about that specific law.
Hey, thank you so much, Cookie Wookie, for joining the membership program. You're officially a hooligan.
Precinct. The balancing of the precinct can come at the counting board level. You think that the ballots come out and then all of a sudden it's given in and locked up in a box. It is not. Once it leaves the precinct, it goes to a counting board. They have the full authority to open up that ballot box because it's not balancing. If the seal is broken, if this is broken, they can reseal it at the counting board. There is a law with the counting board, and it's lazy in the inner cities of color, of people who look like me are not doing their job. And it needs to be done so that we can count 100% of the precincts instead of 29%. That's what needs to be done, is to make sure people are doing their job. You won't get that in an audit. What you will get in the current fake audits that we've been having and these fluff audits that we've had right now, you will get, well, these can't be recounted, so okay, so we can't do that. Here's what we can. You will get an audit of the 29% in Detroit that can be recounted. That's all you're going to get. Because we need to see the 71% of the fraud that has been locked up and will be destroyed after so many years. That's what we need to see.
Thank you,
I'll
Senator.
take any other questions.
Thank you, Senator Irwin. Senator Lucido.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Tarver. I got to tell you, I can't agree with you more. My whole problem is sitting in this chair today and leaving the Senate to go prosecute those crimes. Why was it when the Secretary of State, which you were there how many years?
I've been with the Secretary of State 29 years.
Almost 30 years. We've been in this room here over 6.5 hours, and the irony is it's about the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
If the people are doing their jobs and the integrity of the vote is being respected, we wouldn't be in here today.
That's right.
2 is 71% can't be counted because
of fraud or apathy or incompetence or clerical error or all of the above.
So we did some testimony, and the chairman was gracious enough to bring in 3 separate identifiable clerks from 3 separate identifiable counties. We asked these questions. How many of the ballots weren't signed that you didn't count? How many didn't look like signatures? I mean, we went into the deep dive because there's so many people that are so disenchanted. I don't want them to give up on the vote. I want them to remember that people sacrificed their lives for these amendments.
People who look like me died to get the right to vote. And I'm telling you, it is sacred.
And this discriminatory practices with women not getting the same right that men years ago. If it's a felony, it's a felony.
Mm-hmm.
If it's got to be prosecuted, it should be. Otherwise, the whole fabric of this entire nation falls apart. Discrepancies in the precincts, I get it, to my colleague up here. If you're going to have discrepancies, it's if it's an easy fix. But I'm not hearing things from all over the state. I'm hearing them in segregated areas, and I think you are targeting these areas by saying people are either inept to do their job or they don't care about doing the job.
They have either been instructed not to care or have been allowed to, over the decades, not to be held accountable for the lack of accountability in the sacred vote. When you have gone so many years, people do not want to be called racist.
Right.
And if you're going into urban areas, in particular Detroit, you're hearing, why are you trying to disenfranchise the black vote?
Yeah.
You are racist, racist, racist.
I think this, and
But that has been the mantra, to allow for the 71% of no accountability when we have safeguards in place to ensure the balancing of the precinct and the seal that is not broken.
Dr. Tarver, those ballots are not of color. They
I
are,
agree.
They are one color.
That's right.
And they go in and they have parties on them. And the disrespect that I've heard throughout the process in Wayne County, in Detroit, only leads me to believe that even an audit process, and I got to ask this question, if 71% can't be counted,
Cannot.
the audit process to spend the kind of millions of dollars that it would take, and I really don't even know what CPA firm or what firm would do an audit. Have you, in your almost 30 years with the Secretary of State, could you identify a firm that specializes in election audits?
We'd have to bring in the federal government. The forensic audit that is needed is not going to be what has been done in order to open up those ballot boxes, which we need to.
So
that's where we need to open up the ballot boxes.
So if this has never been done, in the history of this country, I'm asking this question: does the legislature cumulatively or collaboratively work on a standard that would be the audit process? Because the next thing I see is that there's going to be debate over the audit process.
I don't see the legislative body, this body, passing any law to change anything, because must balance is not going to force Detroit to balance. Must balance is not going to force Inez Brown, the city clerk of Flint, to balance. Must balance. She has never been able to balance since she's been an election clerk there. So she's never balanced. Pontiac won't balance. There's a few other places, mostly urban areas, that will not balance. And they don't have to be as large as Detroit. They just won't balance. And if we don't have a mechanism in place, because once you pass a law that says we're going to do this, it is not going to be heeded, because then if you try to enforce it in the urban areas, you'll be considered a racist. You'll be considered disenfranchising the voters. You're just trying to check on us. Oh, black folks from Detroit need to have our whatever 71%. If you can't count it, you can't count it. And this Secretary of State will call it small clerical errors. And that is the mantra and talking points that should not be done. This is not a small clerical error. If there is fraud in those 71%, they need to be opened. Open the boxes. And that's going to be the new mantra, hashtag open the boxes.
Mr. Chair, I just have we're going to get down and drill down on this, but the reality is I don't think my colleagues on the opposite side of the aisle feel any differently. I think to Senator Irwin's point, all of us want the integrity, the respect and trust. Otherwise, we sitting here as lawmakers make no sense if the vote doesn't count and it doesn't accurately reflect what's going on. But
that was certainly the sentiment expressed at our joint committee's first meetings by all members.
And at the end of the day, though, if we don't have the capability of resurrecting this wrong to accurately reflect what the vote is, how did it get so disenfranchised that we all are sitting here today hearing ballots brought in at 4 in the morning? I must have heard it 20 times, maybe more. Ballots that were going through and counted 8 times. Ballots that weren't signed going through, or the signature appeared, or the date, 1900.
Oh, yeah. The constitutional issue and the constitutional issue that the president is arguing, which is a valid one, is that the equal protection under the law, it's required under the Constitution. And this is the president's argument. Me in Lansing, Michigan, if I sent in my absentee ballot, I didn't sign it, or I voted straight Republican and straight Democrat, my partisan section should be spoiled because they should not be curing it. And that is being cured. If I did not do what I needed to do, my ballot won't count. But if the same ballot was sent in Detroit, it is cured, which is fake, trying to interpret the results, and it is accepted if I don't sign it in Detroit. And that's where in Lansing, my ballot won't count. In Detroit, it will, and I should be able to have equal protection under the law. That is the constitutional amendment. That's the constitutional argument that our president is making. That is what you should be looking at. Are we treated fairly, regardless of where we live in Michigan? Will my vote count, regardless?
You used the word cure.
Cure.
And in the law,
yes.
If you look at the legal definition of cure, what do you mean by the definition of cure?
So the curing of the ballots is if you're not able to, you've got an absentee ballot and it is kicked out. Because if you're sitting there, your ballot is kicked out if there's an overvote or if there's an undervote. You can, if there's an overvote, let's say it says vote for not more than 2 and you vote for 3. It's an overvote. It'll kick it back out if you're at the precinct.
And you have a chance to
and
cure
you have
the
a
ballot.
chance to cure your own ballot.
To redress the wrong
Correct.
on the ballot.
But if it's an absentee ballot,
Yes,
it is not supposed to be cured.
it is not supposed
No.
to be. It's supposed
Your
to be.
partisan
It's a spoiled
section,
ballot.
It's no, that section is spoiled. It's not countable. But the nonpartisan section that you did correctly is supposed to be counted.
So let's go by example. I vote straight ticket, Democratic.
And Republican.
Or I vote straight ticket, but when I get to the judges, choose not but one, because they're nonpartisan,
Right.
that part.
Right.
I choose 2.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the ballot?
So your ballot counts, but if it's an absentee, that particular judge is not, it's not counted.
Nobody gets a vote.
Correct.
Okay. At the end of the day, I sat here as a legislator for over 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I sit in this chair and I wonder why the Secretary of State, if you have to request a ballot in a primary for Democrat or Republican, why they just can't make 2 ballots, all Republican, all Democrat, and send them out. So it can't get spoiled. You can't make a mistake. You can't go across the center line.
That is what occurs during the primary. So each group, Republicans and Democrats, decide who's going to be on their ballot.
But if you don't want the ballot to be spoiled and not counted, and you want your vote to count.
You can split your ticket in the general.
In the general, but I'm
Correct.
saying in the primary, do you see why, if I'm asking for a Democratic or Republican.
No, I would agree with you. I would
Because now
agree
it's
with
an
you.
impossibility to spoil that ballot.
That's only in the primary.
Primary, right. But that brings the next level of seekers to move to the general. And if the ballot was spoiled enough times, that seeker may not get the opportunity to serve.
I agree.
Okay, one more thing, and then I'm going to call it, because
I
I
hope
know
so.
it's been. No, but you know what? I'm tired of sitting here and trying to defend
I'm just giving you a hard time, Mr. Vice Chair.
Just go ahead. Give him all the time he wants here.
71% not being able to be counted, which means
71% not being able to be
Which means, do
recounted.
we ever get the opportunity to find out what the
You
hell
will,
happened?
you will never know what is actually in that box, in the ballot box. You're not able to determine if those who are, those ballots are even duplicated in.
you
If you see
believe-
people sending in 3 or 4
got it.
times,
I
you don't
understand.
know.
So that statement of 71% has been stated out in the public. You are aware, being with the Secretary of State's office, 29 years, that's a long time. At the end of the day, does this give rise for the Attorney General to make an investigation and inquiry why 71% of that vote went that way?
Yes, I would believe that, again, if there is impropriety, that is where the Attorney General can investigate. I've prepared referrals to Bill Schuette for election crimes. We've had people in Michigan prosecuted for voting in Michigan and at their summer home in Florida. We've had people who were not here legally, non-citizens, vote in Michigan. We've had tons of people who voted twice, voted in person and absentee, and they're doing it in large clusters in these urban areas. It is a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas. It's not the problem with the laws on the books. It's a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas, and the laws need to be enforced. And if they cannot be enforced, they need to at least bring in the federal government to do an oversight and administer elections in these urban areas, which have been routinely unable to be balancing at the end of the day. We have too many touch points where those things can be balanced, but we have an apathy or just a corrupt, either apathy or a corrupt system. And for some reason, we have no appetite with this governor, Secretary of State, or the Attorney General to do anything about it at this point. This is too egregious and too much fraud that it should have been already investigated.
Well, we have seen prosecutions in election fraud, such as Southfield. There is selective prosecution in certain areas. At the end of the day, why wouldn't this state want the ability to make the inquiry? Is it because the case isn't delivered perfectly? I mean, these are credible people that are testifying here, including yourself.
It is COVID, before COVID, and even with COVID, COVID does not change the law. The law was not changed to accommodate COVID. The people who are the challengers are required and need to be protected in order to see the process. They can challenge the voter, they can challenge the precinct inspector, and they can challenge the entire process. That's what the law says, 168.733. That's what the law says. But we also have laws on the books that allow for people, the public, to view. And we also have laws on the books, but if they're not going to be enforced because it's an urban area, we have laws that says that people who should need assistance should be able to have assistance in voting. And some of these precincts did not have handicap and disability procedures there. Voting by mail disenfranchises a lot of people who cannot read and write, who need assistance, who need some assistance in the voting process with the machines that will read the ballot to them. And so this is the problem where we're not allowing we've used as an excuse COVID, but we are not allowing what needs to be done to be done. Just like the children who are not in school with disabilities are not getting the special care that they need, neither did the voters here in Michigan. They did not get the special assistance that is required by law. These special assistance, even those people who are blind, people who need Braille, people who need special audio equipment, we have those at every precinct, or it should be at every precinct, so that the people of Michigan will have everything they need to vote, and that is not being done in the urban areas. And people don't want to touch Detroit, but it is not a sacred cow anymore. It is looking more like a cow, but not a sacred cow anymore.
I want to say thank you to the chairman. I've gone way over my time.
So have I. I'm
and
sorry.
You know what, though? These questions need to be answered
Okay.
because all of us are here because of this.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you.
I do want to say, I wish that we had the opportunity to bring you in on a time. I mean, the agenda today was really supposed to focus on TCF, but out of respect to you and your experience, have allowed us to go off. But we may need you to come back when we
Call
get
me anytime. You
more
know where I'm at.
into that specific subject matter. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Puddin' Puss, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
So I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, I would just like to make a request that before our next hearing.
Members, Vice Chair Irwin would like to speak to us.
I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, we get some basic information about the facts that we could get in front of all the committee members. Because I think it was at our first hearing, maybe our second hearing, where one of the good representatives also mentioned this figure that 72% of the precincts can't be recounted. And, you know, I received communication from the Secretary of State saying that's not accurate. It's actually 28%. And that's a pretty huge discrepancy. I brought it up at the time, but we've heard this over and over and over again. I mean, we're hearing the same, you know, quips, the greatest hits right here, but that one we keep hearing over and over again, and it's just not true. Right, and so I think that unbalanced precincts and making sure that they're recountable is an important thing, and I think that we should take a look at this. But I just want to point out that at least the information that I've got, and maybe that's wrong, is that it's actually the opposite, and I want to make sure we're dealing in accurate information.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for bringing that up, and I pledge to you that by our next meeting, I'll have some answers or persons who can give us that answers for the meeting. So thank you for bringing that up.
Senator?
Yes.
It's
Senator Tice.
28% of the in-person were recountable, or were not recountable, and 71% of the absentee were not recountable, is my understanding.
I will strive
Right,
to
and that
have,
distinction is super important, because when you say that 71 or 72% of them are not recountable, that obscures some key facts, and it also obscures the fact that there are fewer absentee count boards, a smaller denominator, which is affecting that percentage as well. But yeah, I just want the facts.
I will work to get us those facts for our next hearing. Thank you. We have a few cards left. We are nearing the end. Are you Ms. Fine?
I am Ms. Fine, and
Thank you.
I'm here to nominate Linda Lee Tarver as next Secretary of State.
Irwin sounds like he's about to start peaceful protesting.
Hold on, please. Hold on. Let's get this done. Thank you. I know it's
I was
getting late.
serious.
Thank you. I have Ms. Fine, and then on deck, Mr. Haynes, followed by Patty Kamagata, and then Eddie Kabasinski. So if you're on deck, please be ready. Go ahead, Ms. Fine. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks. I'm from Ingham County. I'm here today not to talk about COVO, but I want to give you something that's along the lines of what Dr. Tarver talked about, and that's following the process.
Were you at COBO?
I was not.
Can I ask you to delay this to another time or to submit in writing? Because I'm
It'll
supposed,
take 1 second.
I know, but I've already disqualified other people who weren't
Well,
at
then I would
COBO.
be disenfranchised, wouldn't I?
No, I give you time to report in another time or in another way.
It's just one thing. Yeah, I will. I'll give it to you. But it's just one thing, and that is Michigan Law 168.765, and that has to do with the privacy envelopes. I spoke to Ingham County, Meridian Township, and Clerk Barb Bybram, and was told that we didn't need privacy envelopes. We were told by the Michigan Election Commission that we didn't need them because there were municipalities who didn't have the money to buy them or print them. It's bunk, folks. You need to look at every aspect of what isn't being enforced. I sat in Meridian Township and saw people's ballots. They said, can I put this in? I don't have the brown envelope. Oh yeah, we'll take that. Subsequent to my affidavit of facts. I also spoke with Lansing City Clerk Chris Swope. I saw him at a function, and he said, oh, yeah, we accept those all the time.
Okay.
So I'm just asking that you look at that.
Thank you.
Check out the COVID, and I'll give you this, but thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Perfect. Michael Haynes. I hope I'm reading your name correctly. I thought at one point it was Hayes,
No,
or,
it's not. I will stand corrected. My name is Michael Hayes, Hayes.
Okay, thank you.
If you're from the east side of the state, just like the street, right, Pete?
You got it. Hayes Road.
after Michael, it's Patty Kamagata, and then Eddie Kabasinski. You have 3 minutes, sir, please.
Okay. I don't know how much I could add that I haven't heard already that you guys have probably grown stale of, because I think you heard the same thing from a lot of people. I don't have much to offer, and the reason why I say that, I wasn't able to get into the ballot room for very long before I was actually forcibly removed. That's the only thing I have to just add to what's already been added at TCF on the morning of the 4th, okay? But I was there until 8:30, almost 9 o'clock PM on the 4th. But I will tell you a few things if you want to hear it, and more as a judgment, and add maybe to some of your thoughts, I will add. But as far as seeing fraud itself, I didn't see fraud. But I don't think I need any more examples that a dog wags its tail than what I witnessed in that day. A dog wags its tail. That means he's happy. Something happened there. You don't go into the amount of disclosure that what I witnessed in that whole day of my time, voluntarily, to know a dog wags its tail. So if that isn't a part of your discussion, that's fine. You have enough facts, there's been enough people. I was with the people in there. I seen the films that they recorded, 3:20 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, just like you have. So I won't bore you with those facts. But I'll tell you what, I'm a lifelong resident of Michigan. I got 50-some years of experience here. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. I seen its day come and go. Right now, the pride level of the city of Detroit and Wayne County was at its highest that I've seen in a very long time. Some of you up there are old enough to know what I'm talking about. Some of them you're not. I guess I'll just have to ask you to take my word for it. Okay? I think we all heard the saying, taking one step forward and 2 steps back. That's almost acceptable. It is. But what I witnessed in the day of November 4th, 2020 in Wayne County, pretty much Detroit did not take 2 steps back. It took 17 steps back. It was disgusting, sickening, nauseating, what I witnessed. Outside factors who had come in, and these are people that didn't take any part in trying to bring the city back to where it was, the greatest city in the world at one time. Nothing. All they did is they came in and tried to diminish it again.
30 seconds, sir.
I will add, the leadership of this state did again, the only thing overwhelmingly discussing TCF was one comment. A divisional comment. It was racist. There was nothing racist there. There was only one race that I witnessed at TCF. That was a human race. That's all I need to add. I mean, I don't know if that is 1 minute or not.
Thank you.
So I don't know how much I can add to you. But guys, if you need more examples that a spade is a spade is a spade, I guess I might as well just start changing my zip code.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Any questions for Mr. Hayes? Thank you, sir. Thanks for your patience all day.
Thank you.
Patty Kamagata? Yes. Oh, it says you weren't at TCF. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Big shout out to everyone that's been making donations, joining the membership program, becoming official hooligans, or purchasing any merch. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are why I'm able to do this every day. You're what's keeping the channel going. And I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Big shout out to all of you.
3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Eddie Kabasinski. I am the only conservative on the Warren City Council. I represent District 5, which is the South Central Warren area. I worked as a poll challenger and was trained by Caitlin Vire and Macomb Trump Victory to work the primary and also on the day of the election. I worked at the Warren Schools Administration building, and I seen a lot of fraud, a lot of inconsistencies take place at that particular precinct. I was working at that precinct, which was sections 53 and 55, and I seen multiple inconsistencies. I reported these to the Macomb County Republican Party as well as Macomb Trump Victory. And, you know, I had the lawyers contacted, and nothing took place as far as remedying the situation. Then the very next day after we had gotten done with the reception party at Mr. B's in Macomb County that evening, Mark Fortin, our chairman of the Macomb County Republican Party, a little bit shortly after 1 a.m. in the morning on 4 November, read the results, and we were waiting for the results to come in on congressional candidate Charles Langworthy, and for it to go over 50%. Then Mark Fortin got the results, and every candidate in Macomb County, with the exception of Macomb County Commissioner seat number 3, which is Nicole Kleinfelter, nobody ran against her. The individual that was running against her dropped out because he didn't have any money. But every Republican won. And then shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, all the votes changed. There was this ballot done.
1 minute left.
So after I had gotten contacted by the Macomb County Republican Party, a mass text message was sent out. I did go to the TCF Center at Cobo Hall in Detroit, as well as Rob Cordes with the Trump Unity Bridge was down there. And we were trying to get in. I went to go and get one of the, I had showed my poll challenger identification from the previous day. And I said I was already trained as a poll challenger. I was waiting for with the rest of the group to get in. They had these people with hoodies on that were there forcing out the 2 poll challengers that were left inside of TCF, physically pushed them out the doors, and then had Detroit police block the doors and told us that we could no longer be there. This is at the time when we're knocking on the door and trying to get in. They put up the pizza boxes up on the windows, and we were not allowed in. Shortly after that, I got out of the TCF Center and seen Rob Cordes being arrested and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded. I talked to one of the officers, the police officers who was there, and he said that the mayor Mayor Duggan basically had told them, not through James Craig, but to start arresting and detaining any Trump supporters that were down there in Detroit, that we were not allowed to be there.
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional questions? Is there any backing up evidence that Mayor Duggan said or did such a thing?
Well, I'm going by my word. I am honorably discharged from the United States Army.
But somebody told you
yes,
that was what was said. So I'm just
yes, this is coming from a Detroit police officer that I had spoke to. I wanted to find out what was going on. I did identify to him that I was a councilman and retired military law enforcement. I would like to find out what was exactly going on, because I did not want to be involved in a situation that would get any members from Macomb Trump Victory or Macomb County Republican Party in any further trouble after we seen Mr. Cordes being arrested and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded.
Okay.
So that was my concern, was for the safety and the security of all of us that would be down there from Macomb County.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what the source was.
It was
for
a
that.
Detroit police officer, one of the Detroit police officers that wears the white traffic caps that is assigned specifically down to Detroit when you have events down there.
Okay, thank you. I've seen no other questions. Thank you for taking the time and for waiting.
To the 4 people that just got timed out, you guys are bickering like children, and you can either get along or get out.
After Mr. Pennington, I have Angelique Johnson, and then we have a few cards from folks who didn't come when I first called. Kurt.
Hey, thank you so much, Carol, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
Have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a long day, and I think more details may not be as important as some summary observations. I was at the TCF Cobo Hall Center on both Tuesday, November 3rd, for almost 14 hours, a little more than 14 hours, and again Wednesday, November 4th, for nearly 12 hours. During that time, I witnessed in summary many of the things that have been detailed by those who have given eyewitness testimony here today. That eyewitness testimony, I would submit to you, qualifies as evidence. That evidence has to be adjudicated and looked at in the overall scope of what it is that this committee will eventually do in determining how deeply you'll investigate or look at some of the evidence that's been presented here. What I saw in summary as a person from the business community, I've seen many systems at work, and I work on strategy, and I work in a number of areas where you look at the whole end-to-end picture of how systems work. I would submit to you that this system could be fixed, and it wouldn't take much, but it would take a very assiduous level of detailed observation. One, the very provenance of the ballots themselves. The ballots themselves, if you were to send something, if you were to send me a gift from Amazon, you would and I would both probably have, through the UPS, FedEx, or whatever delivery system, a greater level of confidence in sending me a piece of candy than you would the ballot, which has been described by many people here today as a sacred privilege, a sacred duty, a sacred responsibility. I think we'd all agree with that. But what I observed at Cobo Hall was essentially, on the surface, if you didn't look deeply, you could see teams that were working together. They were rallied together by the supervisors at various periods. And what I observed there was essentially an attempt to create some esprit de corps there. And I would submit to you further that many of the people working there just wanted to do their jobs. What I haven't heard brought up here today was how they were either incentivized or remunerated or both. I'm told, and I have not been able to verify this for the Detroit Department of Elections yet, that most of these people are typically paid $250 per shift. Maybe you can verify that. I was told, however, this election cycle they're paid $600 per shift. It's typically an 8 to 10 or 12-hour shift, day shift and night shift, and that supervisors were paid $700. Why would Detroit be selected? And I'm told that one other Michigan city was selected for an enhancement of remuneration. That's interesting, to say the least. But I do believe that today, as we sit here, half the people in this constitutional republic, this great nation, feel disenfranchised and defrauded of this most sacred act of good faith in acting to sustain our democracy. Either way this goes, 1/2 of the populace of this country is going to feel disenfranchised and defrauded. I think it's up to this body and other bodies like yours to have the will and determination to go deeper in at least looking at a standard, a modicum of best practices. And I think this could be easily done. I will submit my recommendations, which would include camera systems, which would be privately held. They would not disclose the nature of the vote. We all saw the ballots, but we're not disclosing which way people individually voted. That's a sacred trust. But secondly, I think you could also have a much better degree of sorting the provenance, just like I've said earlier. If you were to mail something to someone using one of the standard carriers today, you'd have more confidence in that than you would in your own ballot. That is an outrage, and that's something that is addressable.
Thank you. You have written down the suggestions?
I'm going to send you these suggestions, Senator McBroom, and I thank you for taking the time, but I challenge you to have the will, all of you, and I think this is a very, I think this is an equitable charge. I think across both parties, there's an equal interest in adjudicating this fairly. Nobody wants to see people feel that they've been disenfranchised and defrauded in this country today. And I believe we can do better. I believe we're not even close. If you were to bring a group of business people in, graduate students from a major university could hack this system easily. That was the thing that stood out to me most. This system is easily compromised, and it shouldn't be. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. After 7 hours of hearing testimony today, I think it was worth the hearing.
Well, thank you for your patience. Any members?
Hey, thank you so much, Debbie, for the donation and all the support. I really appreciate you.
What you just did. There's not many that do this. Look at this today. But more importantly, those recommendations as through your eyes are different than from our eyes.
Yes, sir.
So
Senator Lucido, I am like others have said this before. I've taken my liberty for granted. I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. I've never fought in a foreign war. I'm not a veteran, but people have given everything for us to have this privilege. It is certainly, I know people have said these are fatiguing meetings, they're long days. No, they're not. This is worth it. Every minute of this is worth it. And I commit to you and to this committee to follow up and offer you suggestions that I think will be seen as equitable to either party. But this isn't over yet. I would submit to you and the American people that we have a constitutional process under law by which the media does not determine who our elected officials will be absent going through the process that is necessary. It's painful. It's gone on longer than it should. But we can do better, we must, and we must adjudicate this in a way that satisfies the demand of the American people that they trust, but we must verify.
Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you.
Is Angelique Johnson here? Welcome, Ms. Johnson. Is it Angelique or Angelique? Okay. I've only ever seen it spelled with a Q before,
I
so
know.
forgive me.
Just like in the Bible.
After Ms. Johnson, I have Kurt Hauschauer and Linda Brandis. Please, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Angelique Johnson. I'm a registered poll challenger and voter in Michigan. I was at the TCF Hall on November the 4th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I was called down to come and help out. I was told there wasn't enough representation for our side down there. And so I got up and went on down. I was credentialed and got in. And when I was in, the first thing that I saw after I was told what to do and what to look for, I worked at a table, the very first table, I saw a discrepancy. And at that time, I didn't have no one near me to talk to about it. I was supposed to go to the challenger at the table or the person that was leading the table, but I was still asking questions, and because the person wasn't near me, because we didn't have enough representation, I had 4 tables to observe, you know. I observed the young lady take the ballot out, pass it to the next lady. She scanned it in as I was supposed to stand by the machine, the video monitor to watch that process. And when she scanned it in, it wouldn't go. So then she tried again, or something happened, and she got her supervisor next to her, and the lady got up and went to another table and got one of the people in the shirts that was the supervisor. And she came back and told the young lady something, and the lady looked down in her book, and as I tried to walk over there to see, they told me to go back because I wasn't allowed to come that close to them, but to stand on the end where the monitor was. I would see everything there. And I could see her look in the book for the name that was on the screen. And I noticed that she found the name, and she said, oh, or something like that. It was a discrepancy with this one, and they should have put that one out, and it's here too. So it seemed like it was 2. I don't know, because I wasn't as close, so I'm just telling you what I heard. And the young lady said, well, send it through anyway. That's what she was told to do. So I didn't know if that's something I should have challenged, and I should have, but I didn't because I was still learning the process. And when I went to find my supervisor, he said it was too late to challenge it then. So that was one of the things that I did witness. I witnessed as I stayed there for a while and left out to go to lunch because our room was upstairs, and came back. It was a crowd of people there by that time. And when a crowd of people was there at that time, they wouldn't let them in, but I got in because I was already credentialed, so I just kind of slid around to the side and went back in. And then I noticed a guy said, everybody get out. So everybody had to leave. They put things, cardboard over the windows, and a couple of cops were there. So I noticed that. And I also saw a lawyer also being put out. I looked up and noticed people were cheering, and a lawyer was being put out, and they turned around and asked him, what are you leaving for? And he said, because I asked him what's the count in here, because we had got information, they couldn't let anyone else in. That was on our side to help. And I'm thinking, well, I want to leave, so, you know what, if I leave, can they, like, switch us out? And they's like, if you leave, you can't come back, and if you leave, they're not switching people out. So, you know, I left by 6 o'clock, and that's the things that I saw. All I could do is testify to what I saw and what I witnessed that day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Any questions from members? Yeah, Senator Tice, go ahead. You don't have to apologize.
When they said everybody leave, they didn't mean everybody. They meant some people, right? There were still people who were left in there. They weren't clearing the room.
When they said everybody leave, those were the people who had come to help relieve the workers who had been there the night before and into the next day. Those were the people who went upstairs where I were to get their credentials and everything, because you go upstairs, get trained, get your credentials, come downstairs and sign in the book. So it was a lot of them at the door. I got pictures. And those are the ones they wouldn't let in. They had some words. I came in and there was confusion going on right then and there. And all the TV cameras were taking videos of everything that was going on, because they really were yelling at each other. And they was like, we got the right to be in here. And the guy said, no, everybody leave. And that's all of the people who were at the front, who tried to get in to relieve the workers who were already there. Because I was told it was only 50 of us there. And I counted over 100 tables. And if it's supposed to be one Republican, one Democrat at each table to poll challenge, then that's why I have 4 tables to watch, you know.
So you were there at a pretty regular time, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on November 4th, and you said you were told there were only 50 Republicans there at the time.
I didn't count, but that's what I was told when I got the phone call to come in.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you all, and may God bless you guys and bless this process.
Make sure all of you sign up for the Discord. I'm still working on a way to send out mass text messages to be able to text all of you every time we go live, instead of relying on the YouTube notification algorithm, who has been throttling lately and not giving all my viewers proper notifications. So I'm working on that. But as for now, you should join the Discord. It's free. Download the app on your phone so you'll receive notifications. And I post there. I post on Twitter. I post on all my accounts basically every single time we go live, just so you guys can catch it, you know, if you're not receiving the notifications, which a lot of people are not receiving the notifications. So definitely make sure you join the Discord. I just posted the link, but I'm going to post it again. At least check it out. It's an ongoing chat between all of us hooligans 24 hours a day. Make sure you join it.
Which I was not sure we would do. I would like to, if I believe I'd like to have this committee, if you feel it's all right, I'll send a formal letter from us to Mr. Harkins and ask him to come in. I think he could give us some of the answers that we discussed earlier. Anybody have anything to say about that, feelings on that?
I think that's a good idea.
Did I say the right name? Thomas. I'm sorry, Chris Thomas.
I think all of the information that was put together is imperative that we share that information with the people that are doing their jobs. I think our colleagues, both sides of the aisles, would agree that the information is necessary for improving the process, if not perfecting what we've learned we can do as far as legislators.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lucido. All right, seeing no further business before the committee, Vice Chair Lucido moves to adjourn. Hearing no objection, we're adjourned.
All right, there you have it. Wraps up the third session here in Lansing, Michigan. Wow, we started this thing at around, my goodness, it seemed like 2 days ago we started this thing, but
actually 10 a.m.
10 a.m. There you go. So lasting well into about 7 hours. But we heard a lot of testimony here, a lot of eyewitnesses, a lot of witnesses to.
Hey, thank you so much, Albert, for the donation and all the support. I appreciate you.
We've been here for 7 hours. What's some takeaways for you guys?
Well, I'm losing stuff out of my pockets as we speak. There was so much today packed into what the people were saying who are bringing this alleged voter fraud before.
Hey, thank you, Gino Fast. I really appreciate the donation and all the support. You're awesome.
When it comes to the headquarters of where they were counting these ballots and the tabulations of the machines and the tabulations of the ballots and the hardwiring when it came to the machines with the Ethernet plugs. I mean, there was not one story that didn't have one similar component. And it's kind of funny how you see it in that, and a lot of these people are all from the same county. You see it in that one part of the county, significant alleged voter
Wayne
fraud
County,
in Wayne County.
Detroit area.
There seems to be expansive voter fraud in that area, and all the stories line up. So all these people. Let's put it this way: all these people didn't have time to sit together and come
Sure, Deputy Dog, I got your back.
on eyewitness accounts and sworn testimony, and that's what they brought here today, and it all lines up.
And Lilith, we heard the word earlier, evidence. This is evidence that's brought upon us, confirmed evidence of this happening, and now it's time for the courts, it's for the people to rule accordingly to the evidence presented to everyone here.
Yeah, I appreciated one of the last witnesses. She said she's been working with the Secretary of State for, 25 or 28 years? A very long time.
So I missed it. Are they taking a break or they call it for the day?
A lot of follow-up questions, which I found very interesting, that they are showing, some sort of interest and compassion in what's going on. And she made very clear that it's in these Democrat-run cities and Democrat-run districts where voter fraud is taking place. And she said in the last 8 years specifically, she has noticed that it's been an absolute disaster with the elections. And she said herself, in the inner cities, in communities where people who look like me live there, in black communities, inner city urban communities, this is prominent and we need to fix it. So I really admired her passion and drive to put an end to this.
Yeah, a lot of passion today, obviously. Tomorrow, a little early preview, we'll be back here in Lansing to cover Rudy Giuliani is speaking over at the House tomorrow.
Yes.
So unfortunately he wasn't here today. We thought maybe we might hear from him via phone call. That didn't happen, but we will hear from him.
Hey, thank you so much, VLA. I really appreciate the donation and all the support
that we've seen before us.
Yes, absolutely. I heard it today. I think you were there when I heard it. Eyewitness testimony has been enough to put people in jail for life.
Yeah. Good point.
So
Good point.
Why doesn't that matter now? Why doesn't the eyewitness testimony matter now? Because it's true. It's based on truth, and it has the ability to make a change. And they're scared.
Absolutely. Okay, we want to also thank our partner for the day, and of course that is our good friend Mike Lindell.
All right, so they're going to talk about their sponsors. I'm going to sponsor myself. Make sure you guys go check out all the merch at the Jeff Mag merch store. We have lots of Jeff Mag merchandise. I've put up some Hooligan stuff. We got some Kyle shirts, which maybe I should take that down now that Kyle's free. Yeah, definitely go check it out. There's a little bit of everything. Any specialty items, like I don't know why you would want a mask unless you go to work and you just want to rep the brand because your job forces you to wear a mask like mine. If you would like any of these items as Hooligan items, definitely let me know and I will make some up. But definitely check it out. Everything I've gotten from the merch store is good quality. I like it. All the Hooligans I know that have purchased stuff, they all like it. Never heard any complaints or anything like that. I haven't heard of anyone having to take their stuff back or having, crappy quality. I dig it. I've ordered probably like $300 worth of stuff from here now. Constantly ordering new stuff. I need to get a King Hooligan shirt. That's what I'm really working on getting. Anyways, definitely check it out. I'm going to post a link in the chat.
RINO. That's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Parler, you name it, I'm on there. It's all the same across the board, so keep it really simple.
Okay, Lilith?
You can follow me on Instagram, Teachers for Trump, where I also expose the public education system.
Hey, thank you so much, Scuba Steve. I really appreciate the donation and all the support.
That about wraps it up here in Lansing. We'll see you back here tomorrow. One last time, goodbye. God bless. We'll see you again.
We're not just any news network.
All right. Oop, where am I at? Boom, there I am. All right, so we're going to call it for now. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff going on today. I seen Portland was protesting last night. My brain was fried. 10 hours is a long time to be live. So I did not cover it, but as far as I know, it went very peaceful. I'm not sure if they're going to be protesting today or whatnot, but it's still early, especially for like Portland and stuff. I think it's only 2:27 there or something like that. So I'm sure there will be more to cover today, but we're going to wrap this up because this live was just based around the Michigan election hearing, especially because I'm a Michigander. Again, sorry I didn't cover the whole thing. I was at work. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing that. I really appreciate all of you for being here. I appreciate everyone that shows up every day. Thank you all for the donations, all the hooligans that joined the membership program. I really appreciate all of you, and thank you to everyone that's purchased any merch. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. You guys are what's keeping the channel going. You're why I can do this every day, so thank you so much. So, yeah, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to keep my eyes open. I'm going to eat some food. All of you have been with me all day. Go get some food. We're going to take a little bit of a break here. Then I'm going to see what else is going on, and we'll probably go live again because that's my favorite thing to do.